Chapter 751. The moment the totem appeared, everyone felt a vast, boundless power that was difficult to resist. What is this? Looking at the starlight net that surrounded Nye Tian, everyone's expressions stiffened. They could not express the shock in their hearts. Who would have thought that at this moment, Nye Tian still had a trump card? What they did not know was that this was not Nye Tian's final trump card. He still had the seal of the spiritual dragon that he had yet to use. Nye Tian did not have the absolute sky slash. Otherwise, he would not have used the totem. Since the totem had appeared, Nye Tian would not let Yunzong off so easily. At the very least, he would make the latter pay a heavy price. Corpse Luo, get ready to devour his origin spirit. Nye Tian's lips curled into a cold smile as he spoke coldly. Master, I've been ready for a long time. The corpse demon lord snickered. When Yunzong revealed his giant spiritual real body, the corpse demon lord was already prepared to devour him. Using the giant spiritual real body in front of Nye Tian, and the corpse demon lord was simply courting death. What the hell is this? The moment the totem appeared, Yunzong was suddenly stunned. But the next moment, his expression returned to ferocity. At this point, there was no room for retreat. The only way was to fight to the death. At this moment, everyone's eyes burned with passion. They were eagerly waiting to see who would win this battle. In the void, the black flame venomous dragon rolled over. Its body surged with a black splendor and was unusually terrifying. Boom! The next moment, the giant dragon touched the totem. The void shook violently and the momentum of heaven and earth suddenly tightened. Even the space was distorted. Nye Tian felt the raw star stone in his body shake violently. The realm zone formation spun wildly and the power of stars surged out at an even greater rate. Heaven-shrouding totem, trap it! Nye Tian roared. With a thought, the heaven-shrouding totem rolled up and wrapped around the black flame venomous dragon. Layers upon layers of the giant net wrapped around the black flame venomous dragon, rendering it immobile. Awoo! The black flame venomous dragon howled at the sky. The black splendor on its body became even more violent and invaded the totem, trying to devour the power of stars. Unfortunately, the power of stars was the origin of power and was not afraid of the black flame. Nye Tian had once used the heaven-shrouding totem to defeat Qianlong Yingzheng, who was at the third level of the heaven realm. However, the shrouding the heavens totem at that time had the support of Little Fox Li's Eye of the Scar of Dusk, so it was much stronger than the current shrouding the heavens totem. But Qianlong's brilliance was far superior to Yunzong's. Nye Tian's sky-covering totem still had the upper hand in the battle. Nye Tian was very curious. The heaven-shrouding totem seemed to be very powerful after being strengthened by the Eye of the Scar of Dusk. It was as if the power of the Scar of Dusk could double the power of the totem. This even made him suspect that the power of the Scar of Dusk was purer than the power of the stars. The heaven-shrouding totem controlled the black flame venomous dragon. The crowd was stunned by the scene before them. Everyone looked at it in disbelief. The heaven-shrouding totem controlled the black flame venom dragon. The crowd was completely stunned by the scene in front of them. Everyone looked on in disbelief. Many people felt like they were dreaming. In the distance, Xian Qiu looked at the scene in the void. His eyes were calm and cold as if he was thinking about something. Xian Qiu thought that even the current him did not have the confidence to win against the heaven-shrouding totem. Xian Qiu thought that even the current him did not have the confidence to win against the heaven-shrouding totem. Beside Xian Qiu was a short old man who was standing respectfully. If someone from the Blue Dragon Academy was here, they would recognize the short old man as the great elder of the Law Enforcement Hall, Qi Yi. Your Highness, what is this kid trying to do? Is he going to kill Yunzong? Do you want me to stop him? Qi Yi recovered from his shock and looked at Xian Qiu with a burning gaze as he asked urgently. Qi Yi did not expect that Yunzong would be at a disadvantage in this battle. Yunzong was the great elder of the law enforcement hall and a member of the Yun family. If he was killed by Nie Tian, it would be terrible. Once Nie Tian killed Yunzong, even if he, the great elder of the law enforcement hall, appeared, he might not be able to protect him. Xian Xiu paused and his eyes flickered. He was obviously thinking about something. His lips curled into a cold smile and he waved his hand. No hurry. He had asked Qi Yi to come to save Nie Tian, not to save Yunzong. He even hoped that Nie Tian could kill Yunzong. In this way, it would weaken the Yun family's influence in the Blue Dragon Academy. When Nie Tian killed Yunzong and Xian Xiu appeared to save his life, how could the former not be grateful? Qi Yi looked at Xian Xiu and did not speak. On the other side, the battle between Nie Tian and Yunzong was still going on. Nie Tian had already gained complete dominance. Nie Tian controlled the shrouding sky totem and tightened it slightly. The black flame venomous dragon was like a small loach in a fishing net, unable to move at all. Yunzong felt a huge force pressing on him from all directions, as if it was going to squeeze him to death. The pain in his body made him howl like a pig being slaughtered. When the crowd saw this, they were all stunned and did not know what to say. Who would have thought that the battle situation would be reversed in an instant? Nie Tian tightly controlled Yunzong, and the latter's death was only a matter of time. At this moment, the black brilliance released by the black flame venomous dragon surged into the shrouding sky totem and was slowly absorbed by it, turning into nourishment. Nie Tian felt the origin energy in his body increase crazily, and he could not help but smile. The shrouding sky totem was absorbing the black flame venomous dragon's power and turning it into Nie Tian's origin energy. The heaven-devouring soul nurtured by the power of the stars was indeed terrifying. Brat, what did you do to me? Yunzong felt a strange force surging in his body, as if it was going to pull his origin spirit out of his body. His origin energy was also continuously draining. After a while, the 100-meter-long black flame venomous dragon in the shrouding sky totem actually shrunk, and the black flames on its body surface also weakened significantly. At the same time, Nie Tian's strength increased crazily. In just a few dozen seconds, his strength actually increased by one level, reaching the second level of heavenly evolution. However, this kind of devouring was too wasteful. The shrouding sky totem could only absorb less than 1/10 of the power, and most of the power dissipated into the surroundings. Master, leave some for me. The corpse demon lord felt the black flame venomous dragon's power continuously weakening, and his heart ached. I'll leave the rest to you. Nie Tian smiled faintly and stopped absorbing the power of the black flame venomous dragon. All right. The corpse demon lord shouted excitedly, and his figure flew out like a stream of light. He followed the shrouding sky totem and entered the black flame venomous dragon's body. In the next moment, a layer of black gas surged from the black flame venomous dragon's body and enveloped it. In the blink of an eye, the black gas dissipated, and the black flame venomous dragon's 100-meter-long body disappeared into thin air. A huge rat appeared in the air. Its belly was as round as a ball, making it look like a big ball. Chapter 752. Watch out! Nie Tian's eyes flickered as he sensed the incomparably terrifying power. In the air, Corpse Demon King's figure shrunk rapidly and disappeared. Boom! That power landed on the ground, and the earth shook. The ground within a few hundred meters cracked, and a wave of sand and stones rose dozens of meters high. The crowd retreated quickly. Many people were affected by the wave of air and vomited blood on the spot. That was close. Luckily, I escaped quickly. Corpse Demon King returned to the chaotic original coffin, his heart pounding. It was too dangerous just now. If he had been half a second late, there would have been a giant rat corpse on the ground. Nie Tian stood in the wave of air, his body like a sword. Sword will surged around him, not letting the sand and stones in the air get close to him. Just then, a figure descended. With a wave of his long sleeve, the sand and stones in the air all fell to the ground, leaving a huge pit with a radius of several hundred meters. Yunzong, are you okay? The person landed beside Yunzong, looking nervous. Puff. Yunzong stood where he was, his face as pale as paper. As soon as he opened his mouth, he vomited a mouthful of blood, swayed, and fell unconscious. Zonger. Seeing Yunzong faint, the person cried out in pain. Zonger. Hearing this name, Nie Tian's face darkened. He immediately knew that the person must be from the Yun clan, and should be Yunzong's elder. Nie Tian looked at the person. It was a white-haired old man. He was slim, and his eyes were sharp, giving people a strong sense of oppression. Vice Principal Yun. The crowd saw the white-haired old man's face, and shouted in unison. It turned out that this old man was none other than the vice principal of the Tsang Dragon Academy, Yun Haichao. Yun Haichao was also from the Yun clan, and was Yunzong's uncle. Nie Tian sensed Yun Haichao's strength and frowned. He was in the second level of the Celestial Being Realm. A Celestial Being Realm warrior was hard for the current Nie Tian to fight against, especially when Sword Absolute Heaven Slash was not in his hands. Suddenly, Yun Haichao's face became cold. He looked at Nie Tian, his white hair standing on end. You were the one who injured him? His voice was trembling, and his whole body was trembling. Without a doubt, this was the trembling of rage. Yunzong was a member of the Yun clan. How could Yun Haichao not be enraged that he had been beaten to such a state in the Blue Dragon Academy? He asked for it. Nie Tian calmed down and replied indifferently. His calm voice fell, but every word was like a clap of thunder, resounding in everyone's ears. Nie Tian was too arrogant. He actually dared to speak in such a manner to the vice principal of the Tsang Dragon Academy. The air suddenly became still. The crowd stared dumbly at Nie Tian and Yun Haichao. Yun Haichao's gaze trembled as he clenched his fists. How many years had it been since someone had dared to speak to him like this? Brat, do you know who I am? Yun Haichao suppressed his anger, his voice hoarse and venomous. Nie Tian glanced at him and said indifferently, You are the vice principal of the Blue Dragon Academy and a member of the Yun clan. But so what? In my eyes, you are no different from anyone else. His voice was calm, but the calmer it was, the angrier Yun Haichao became. Is that so? Yun Haichao's gaze suddenly became cold and murderous. Yes, Nie Tian nodded solemnly and said indifferently, If you want to avenge Yunzong, just come. If you want to fight, I will accompany you to the end. Accompany to the end. As his resolute voice fell, the whole place fell into dead silence again. After a while, the sound of gulping saliva could be heard. Nie Tian's words were too arrogant, too presumptuous, too arrogant, crazy enough to make one's hair stand on end. Who was Yun Haichao? The vice principal of the Blue Dragon Academy was definitely a top-notch expert in the entire Black Moon Empire. Nie Tian wanted to fight with him. Wasn't it like a mantis trying to stop a chariot? Nie Tian's strength was indeed heaven-defying, but it was impossible for him to be a match for a Heaven Realm martial artist. It was no exaggeration to say that as long as Yun Haichao released his Heaven Realm, he could kill Nie Tian in one move. Little bastard, you're courting death. Yun Haichao's trembling suddenly stopped and was replaced by the most resolute murderous intent. He did not know how Nie Tian injured Yunzong, but he knew that he must make the other pay with his life today. As the head of an academy, it was indeed beneath his dignity to fight a youth in public. But at this time, Yun Haichao could not care so much. Vice Principal Yun, long time no see. Just as Yun Haichao was about to explode, an indifferent voice sounded in the void, and then a figure floated down. Nie Tian looked at the newcomer. It was a young man around 20 years old. He was handsome, but his eyes contained a strange gleam that could not be seen through. What surprised Nie Tian the most was that this man actually had the strength of a heavenly evolution level 9. To be able to reach the 9th level of heavenly evolution at such a young age, his talent was extraordinary. 19th Prince. When Yun Haichao saw the person's face, he was stunned at first. Then, his face darkened and he cried out involuntarily. The newcomer was none other than Prince Xianqiu, who had been watching from the sidelines for a long time. Xianqiu was the 19th prince of the Black Moon Empire, so Yun Haichao addressed him as the 19th prince. When the crowd heard Yun Haichao's voice, they immediately became excited. 19th Prince. He is Prince Xianqiu. Your Highness Xianqiu, he is one of the legendary 9 demons. Why is he here? His Highness Xianqiu is ranked 9th among the 9 demons and is a top genius of the Shumi world. The crowd discussed among themselves as they looked at Prince Xianqiu with fervent admiration. 9 demons, the collective name of the 9 peak geniuses of the Sumeru world. Qianlong Yingjing was the leader of the 9 demons, while Crown Prince Xian Shao was the second. Prince Xianqiu was ranked 9th. However, Jiuyao was not the peak genius of the Sumeru world. The hierarchy of the Sumeru world was strict. Everything was divided into different grades. Above the 9 demons were the 6 evils, above the 6 evils were the 3 kings, and above the 3 kings was the emperor. Therefore, the highest genius of the Sumeru world was the emperor, followed by the 3 kings, then the 6 evils, and finally the 9 demons. 1 emperor, 3 kings, 6 evils, and 9 demons. These 19 people represented the pinnacle of martial arts talent in the Sumeru world. Prince Xianqiu was ranked 9th among the 19 people. However, this was already an incredible talent that allowed him to look down on the entire Tsang Dragon Academy. Because of this, Prince Xianqiu's status among the princes of the Black Moon Empire was second only to Crown Prince Xian Shao. As the saying goes, 2 tigers cannot live on the same mountain. Xian Shao and Xianqiu were both geniuses of the 9 demons. The 2 of them fought fiercely in private. The people of the Black Moon Empire even addressed Xianqiu as the Little Prince in private. At this time, Xianqiu's arrival at the Tsang Dragon Academy naturally caused an uproar. Nie Tian frowned at this moment. He suddenly recalled the golden medal that he had taken from that person. The word Qiu was written on it. He immediately understood that the person from before must be Xianqiu's man, and he was the one who called Xianqiu over. Chapter 753. Xianqiu sensed Nie Tian at a close distance. The bloodline seal in his body became more active. He could feel more clearly that the power hidden in Nie Tian's body was abnormally terrifying, much more terrifying than he had expected. Xianqiu had seen Nie Tian swallow Yunzong's original spirit with his own eyes. The scene was too shocking. He was still wondering what the power in Nie Tian's body was. Why was it so powerful? He could even feel that Nie Tian's martial body was different from ordinary people. It was much more powerful than martial artists of the same level. Only those martial artists with spiritual body of heaven and earth could barely compete with Nie Tian. Xianqiu did not want to show up, but he did not expect that this matter would alarm Yun Haichao. If he did not show up now, Qi Yi alone would not be able to protect Nie Tian. Qi Yi was the great elder of the Law Enforcement Hall, but Yun Haichao was the deputy dean of the Blue Dragon Academy. While Xianqiu was observing Nie Tian, the latter was also observing him. Nie Tian also felt a hidden power in Xianqiu. It was very strong, but it was extremely restrained. I dare not. Yun Haichao's face was very ugly, but he still bowed to Xianqiu respectfully. If it was any other prince, Yun Haichao would not care at all. But Xianqiu was different. He was a prince second only to Crown Prince Xian Shao, and one of the most powerful competitors for the throne. You better not. Xianqiu's mouth twitched. What's going on? Yun Haichao's eyes trembled. How could he not know that Xianqiu was asking the obvious? He was just about to attack Nie Tian when Xianqiu appeared with Qi. How could there be such a coincidence? There were 4 major families in the Black Moon Empire: Qi, Lu, Yun, and Yu. Everyone knew that the Qi family belonged to Prince Xianqiu, the Lu family and the Yun family belonged to Crown Prince Xianshao, and the Yu family was neutral between the two princes. Qi, who was beside Xianqiu, was from the Qi family. Obviously, Xianqiu and Qi Yi suddenly appeared to save Nie Tian. Xianqiu did not wait for Yun Haichao to speak. Instead, he looked at Nie Tian and asked, "How should I address you?" Nie Tian replied, neither servile nor overbearing. Xianqiu faintly smiled and said, "Nie Tian, you are the person involved. Why don't you tell me what is going on?" Nie Tian's gaze focused slightly as a wisp of a bright light flashed within it. He took a step forward and recounted the course of events in a simple manner without any bias. Finally, Nie Tian said, "I don't know Zhou Lihe and Yun Yu. They attacked first, and I was forced to attack." Nie Tian was very smart. Of course, he knew why Xianqiu was here. He didn't need to exaggerate, he just needed to create an excuse for Xianqiu, and the latter would naturally ensure his safety. He was forced to make a move. As soon as Nie Tian finished speaking, Yun Haichao roared, "Even if you were forced to act, must you kill him? I killed Yun Yu because he insulted my friend." Nie Tian slightly frowned and said, "As for Yunzong, he wanted to kill me without asking right or wrong. I also had no choice but to injure him." Yun Haichao was speechless after hearing Nie Tian's words. He felt a lump of stuffiness in his chest, which was very uncomfortable. "Vice Principal Yun, don't be so agitated." Xianqiu faintly smiled and said, "I won't listen to his side of the story. We can ask others." After that, Xianqiu glanced at the crowd and said loudly, "Who is Zhou Li and Huang Xianer? Please come forward." At this time, Zhou Li and Huang Xianer had not left. Hearing Xianqiu's order, they had no choice but to come forward. "I want to ask you, is what he said just now true?" Xianqiu stared at the two with cold eyes, revealing a deep sense of oppression. 19th Highness. Zhou Li was so scared that his face turned pale, and his forehead was covered with dense beads of sweat. He knelt down and cried bitterly, saying, "This matter has nothing to do with me. It's all Huang Xianer's fault. She asked me to kill child Nie Tian." Zhou Li was not stupid. Of course, he could see that Xianqiu was on Nie Tian's side, so he immediately pushed everything to Huang Xianer. And the truth was indeed so. He didn't know anything and only did as Huang Xianer ordered. Although Zhou Li was seriously injured by Nie Tian, he felt very lucky. Compared to Huang Xianer, whose Yuan meridians were destroyed, Yun Yu killed, and Yun Zong's Yuan spirit swallowed, he was indeed better off. Hearing Zhou Li's words, Huang Xianer's body suddenly trembled and she also knelt down. She was more shrewd, so how could she not know what Prince Xianqiu meant? She hurriedly said, 19th Highness, it's all my fault. It's me. Huang Xianer immediately told him what happened in Songlong mountain range. As soon as Huang Xianer's words fell, there was a commotion in the crowd. "I didn't expect things to turn out like this. Senior Sister Huang is really too much. Yes, young Master Nie Tian saved her, but she wanted to kill him instead. She's really cruel and unscrupulous. Beautiful women are cruel and merciless." Hearing the crowd criticize Huang Xianer, Xianqiu nodded slightly, and a strange look flashed in his eyes. He said loudly, "You woman, you are really treacherous. Nie Tian saved your life. It's fine if you don't want to repay the kindness, but you actually want to kill him. You deserve to die." "Spare me, Your Highness. I don't dare, I won't dare anymore." Huang Xianer felt a killing intent coming at her face, and she immediately shouted loudly. Unfortunately, it was too late. A flame gushed out of Xianqiu's body and swept through the air. Huang Xianer directly perished. The crowd gasped when they saw this scene. Prince Xianqiu looked polite, but they didn't expect him to be so fierce when he was angry. To kill such a beautiful woman like Huang Xianer, His temperament was really different from ordinary people. Nie Tian's eyes trembled violently when he saw this scene, and he immediately understood Xian Qiu's intention. Huang Xian'er stood up and explained the matter. That was enough, and she was useless. If he kept her alive, it would be troublesome if she changed her mind. Xian Qiu's ruthlessness was beyond Nie Tian's expectation. This prince was not simple. As for Zhou Li, he didn't know anything, so it didn't matter if he killed him or not. Xian Qiu's expression was still as usual after killing Huang Xian'er. He said indifferently, "Vice Dean Yun, everything is clear now. Everything happened because of Huang Xian'er." Nie Tian defeated Zhou Li and was seen by Yunyu. Yunyu was young and frivolous. He wanted to challenge Nie Tian, but Nie Tian didn't give him a chance, so he insulted Nie Tian's friend. Nie Tian was angry and accidentally killed him. Later, Yunzong rushed over and saw Yunyu's corpse. He wanted to take revenge, but who would have thought that he would be injured by Nie Tian? Later on, Vice Dean Yun appeared. Xian Qiu paused here and let out a strange smile. He turned to Yun Haichao and said, "That's the whole thing. This king doesn't think that Nie Tian did anything wrong. What about Vice Dean Yun?" Chapter 754. Yun Haichao froze on the spot. Feeling the coercion in Xian Qiu's eyes, the suffocation in his chest became more intense, making his old face turn red. At this time, everyone's eyes were focused on Yun Haichao, waiting for him to speak. Yun Haichao knew that the matter was irreversible. With Xian Qiu's appearance, it was impossible for him to kill Nie Tian. However, he was unwilling to accept it. One of the Yun family's people was killed and the other was crippled. He could only watch the murderer leave. This feeling was like a knife twisting his heart. Xian Qiu wasn't in a hurry. He just looked at Yun Haichao indifferently, giving the latter enough time to think. After more than 10 seconds, Yun Haichao suddenly raised his head, suppressed his anger, and said in a cold tone, "Your Highness, Nie Tian killed Yun Yu and crippled Yun Zong. Are you going to let this matter go?" "Vice President Yun, watch your attitude. You shouldn't talk to His Highness like this." Qi Yi, who was behind Xian Qiu, stepped forward and shouted coldly, "I." Yun Haichao's face was as gloomy as blood dripping from his face, and his blood was about to burst. But when he saw Xian Qiu's face, he could only nod and say in a deep voice, "I lost my composure. Please forgive me, Your Highness." "Humph." Xian Qiu sneered and said indifferently, "Vice President Yun, I won't pursue this matter since you lost your family. But it's clear that the culprit, Huang Xian'er, has been executed. Although Nie Tian killed the Yun family's people, he had no choice but to do so. In this prince's opinion, Nie Tian has a good temper. If someone insults this prince's friend, this prince will not only kill them, but also exterminate their whole family." The cold voice was like a thunderclap that bombarded Yun Haichao's heart. Yun Haichao felt a tearing pain in his chest, but he couldn't find any way to relieve it. "Vice President Yun, Nie Tian is this prince's friend. This matter ends here. How about it?" Xian Qiu changed the topic and questioned Yun Haichao in a calm voice that was suffocating. "Nie Tian is the 19th Highness's friend." The hearts of the crowd trembled crazily. No one had expected that Nie Tian would actually be related to Prince Xian Qiu. At this moment, everyone came to their senses. No wonder Nie Tian dared to kill Yunyu. It turned out that he had nothing to fear. However, they didn't know that it was Nie Tian's first time seeing Xian Qiu. Xian Qiu was too hateful. First, he said that someone insulted his friend. Not only did he want to kill them, but he also wanted to exterminate their family. Then, he made it clear that Nie Tian was his friend. This was clearly forcing Yun Haichao to stop. Yun Haichao stood where he was, the muscles on his face twitching, his expression becoming somewhat ferocious. "Vice Principal Yun, His Highness is asking you a question. Didn't you hear it?" Qi Yi said coldly when he saw that Yun Haichao wasn't speaking. Yun Haichao's body trembled as if he had been struck by lightning. He looked venomously at Nie Tian, his eyes filled with unwillingness, anger, and killing intent. Your Royal Highness, I will take my leave. After a while, Yun Haichao's eyes trembled. He slightly cupped his hands, and without waiting for Xian Qiu's response, he directly carried Yun Zong and turned to leave. How dare you! Qi Yi looked at Yun Haichao's back and shouted angrily. However, Xian Qiu slightly waved his hand and said with a smile, Vice Principal Yun lost a family member and is in a sad mood. Let him be. I am not that kind of person. Your Royal Highness is magnanimous. Qi Yi respectfully bowed and said seriously. Then, Qi Yi asked the crowd to disperse and asked the people of the law enforcement hall to take Zhou away. After a while, only Nie Tian, Xian Miaomiao, Xian Qiu, and Qi Yi were left on the scene. Of course, there was also a crow hiding in the dark. Xian Qiu looked at Nie Tian with his burning eyes. Then, he looked at Xian Miaomiao and said with a smile, How should I address you, young lady? Your Royal Highness, I am Xian Miaomiao. Xian Miaomiao was very respectful and nervous. She was afraid that she would say something wrong. Xian? You are from the imperial family? Xian Qiu's eyes froze, and his expression suddenly became strange. Then, his body trembled as if he had seen something very scary. Your Royal Highness. Seeing Xian Qiu's reaction, Qi Yi hurried forward to support him. Xian Qiu immediately returned to normal. He waved his hand and said with a smile, Young lady, you are indeed from the imperial family. Nie Tian did not say anything. Of course, he knew that Xian Qiu must have sensed the bloodline seal in Xian Miaomiao's body. That was why he was so nervous. According to Huijia, Xian Miaomiao's bloodline seal was much stronger than Prince Xian Zhao's. Of course, it was also stronger than Xian Qiu's. I used to be from the imperial family. Now I am just a commoner. Xian Miaomiao lowered her head and did not dare to look at Xian Qiu. At this time, Xian Qiu still wanted to say something, but he was interrupted by Nie Tian. Your Royal Highness, if there is anything, just say it. Nie Tian looked at Xian Qiu indifferently and said in a calm tone. Young man, mind your status. His Royal Highness is a king. Xian Qiu did not speak, but Qi Yi shouted. Nie Tian shook his head slightly and ignored Qi Yi. He said indifferently, Your Royal Highness, I am in a hurry. If you do not say it, I will leave. Xian Qiu was stunned. He did not expect Nie Tian to have such an attitude. Originally, he thought that if he protected Nie Tian would at least be respectful, even if not grateful. However, Nie Tian treated him like an ordinary person, and didn't show the slightest respect at all. Nie Tian's attitude made Xian Qiu feel very uncomfortable. However, he did have something to ask Nie Tian for help. After thinking for a while, he forced a smile and said, Nie Tian, I want to be friends with you. Are you willing? Xian Qiu's words stunned Qi Yi. Who was Nie Tian that Xian Qiu would treat him like this? Your Royal Highness, you and I are both smart people. No need to say nonsense. I, Nie Tian, am not a fool. I will not be used by others for nothing. So if there's anything, it's better to say it directly. The corners of Nie Tian's mouth curled up slightly. His tone was as calm as before. Huh! Xian Qiu's brows knitted even deeper. He did not expect that Nie Tian was still so insolent when he already put on a low profile, completely not giving him a prince face. Nie Tian could tell from Xian Qiu's methods earlier that this prince was extremely shrewd and ruthless. Xian Qiu protected him with all his might. He definitely had a request. Since the relationship between the two was purely based on interests, why should Nie Tian be courteous with the other party? Stinking brat, His Royal Highness is respectful to you because he sees that your strength is passable. Don't be ungrateful. At this time, Qi Yi hooted again. However, Xian Qiu slightly waved his hand and suppressed the displeasure in his heart. He said, Nie Tian, I want to invite you to Prince Xian Qiu's mansion for a talk. What do you think? Nie Tian was too difficult to control. He was much more difficult to deal with than Xian Qiu had expected. Nie Tian thought for a while. With a flash of light in his eyes, he said, Your Royal Highness, I'm not used to the restraint of the prince's mansion. If you want to talk to me, let's meet at the Craftsman's Guild tomorrow. Okay. Deal. Xian Qiu thought for a while and finally nodded. Deal. Nie Tian smiled faintly. Without saying goodbye, he turned around and left with Xian Miaomiao. Tomorrow was the day when Xian Miaomiao accepted the fire worship armor as her master. The location was at the Craftsman's Guild. Chapter 755. After making an appointment with Xian Qiu, Nie Tian left with Xian Miaomiao. Xian Qiu stood in the same place, looking at Nie Tian's back. His eyes gradually became complicated, as if he was thinking about something. Your Highness, this kid is too presumptuous. Should I get someone to beat him up? Qi Yi didn't know what Xian Qiu was thinking and said angrily. No need. Xian Qiu waved his hand, his eyes became gloomy, and there was a faint murderous intent brewing. Nie Tian was too arrogant, he didn't give Xian Qiu any face. Nie Tian, I hope you don't let me down, because you can't afford the price of disappointment. Xian Qiu looked at the direction where Nie Tian left with a strange look. He sneered in his heart and immediately left with Qi Yi. He saved Nie Tian purely because the latter was useful to him. If the latter couldn't prove his value, he would be a useless person. A useless person would end up like Huang Xianer, dead. After Nie Tian and Xian Miaomiao left, they casually walked around the Tsang Dragon Academy. In the evening, Nie Tian left. He reminded Xian Miaomiao to be careful, and he would wait for her at the entrance of the Tsang Dragon Academy tomorrow morning. Nie Tian estimated that Yun Haichao wouldn't lay his hands on Xian Miaomiao. After all, Xian Miaomiao didn't participate in anything from the beginning to the end. Everything was done by Nie Tian. Moreover, Yun Haichao wasn't stupid. Laying his hands on Xian Miaomiao at this time was simply telling others that he was the one who did it. After leaving the Tsang Dragon Academy, Nie Tian came to the Mystic Moon City. He inquired about the location of the largest auction house and went straight there. After a while, Nie Tian appeared in front of a large auction house. Yu Family Auction House. Nie Tian looked at the name of the auction house in front of him and couldn't help but smile. He had just inquired about the Mystic Moon Empire from Xian Miaomiao. He already knew that the four great families of the Mystic Moon Empire were Qilu Cloud Jade, and the auction house in front of him must belong to the Yu family. The name of the Sumer World Auction House was full of ridicule, directly named after the family. Nie Tian didn't think too much and directly entered. The Yu family's auction house was huge, even bigger than the Azura auction house in the spiritual capital black market. Luckily, the Yu family's auction house did not have too many rules. Nie Tian only needed to apply for a VIP card and pay some crystals to enter the auction house. At this moment, the auction was in full swing. The entire auction hall was huge and could accommodate thousands of people. It was already full. Nie Tian found an inconspicuous spot and watched quietly, waiting for the thing he needed to appear. The main reason he came to the auction house was to purchase some spirit materials and spirit medicines. He had an agreement with Fire Armor to raise Xian Miaomiao's mental strength to rank 35 within a month. Nie Tian was prepared to use the Shrouding Heaven Totem to create a spiritual energy spirit array, but he needed some spiritual materials. During the battle with Qian Longying, Nie Tian had already realized that the Shrouding Sky Totem was extremely useful. Not only could it turn into a Shrouding Sky Seal, but it could also be used as a spiritual array. The power of stars and mental strength were closely related. Because of this, Nie Tian's mental strength could reach the terrifying level of rank 72. With the mental strength spirit array created by the Shrouding Sky Totem, coupled with some spiritual materials and spirit medicines that were extremely helpful for mental strength cultivation, Nye Tian was confident that he could raise Xian Miao Miao's mental strength to rank 35 within a month. If he did not have this confidence, he would not have bet with fire armor. At this moment, a graceful figure walked out from the auction house. It was a woman in her 20s, wearing a long green dress. Her breasts were full, her waist was slender, and her snow-white shoulders were exposed. Most auction houses like to use young and beautiful women as their auctioneers. For example, Aokiki Lily and Lu Yingying. A middle-aged man next to Nye Tian chuckled as he stared at the woman on the auction house. Lady Yu Jiao is becoming more and more feminine. She makes people want to be beasts just by looking at her. Be careful of what you say. Trouble comes from the mouth. Lady Yu Jiao is Lord Yu Qingshan's first wife's daughter. If the Yu family heard what you said, you would lose your life. Another man reminded in a low voice. Just saying, just saying. The person who spoke first chuckled and did not say anything else. Nye Tian shook his head and smiled. It seemed that Lady Yu Jiao had a powerful background. She should be a direct descendant of the Yu family. However, he did not know what position this Yu Qingshan had in the Yu family. The auction continued. Nye Tian was not interested in the first 10 items. They were not what he needed. Following which, something that Nye Tian was very interested in appeared. A Grade 5 Spacetime Spirit Array Scroll. A spacetime scroll could teleport through space. A Grade 5 scroll could teleport across planes. Nye Tian came to the Sumer world. He might have to return to the 3,000 small worlds at any time. It was good to have a spacetime scroll on him. The starting price of the Grade 5 spacetime scroll was very high. It was 100,000 high-grade essence crystals. 100,000 high-grade essence crystals was equivalent to 10 million low-grade essence crystals. This price was equivalent to the annual income of a large family in a first-rate empire in the 3,000 small world. From this, it could be seen that the essence crystals in the Sumer world were really worthless. After the space-time scroll appeared, the whole place was in an uproar. These people were the big shots in the Mystic Moon City. It was estimated that many of them were here for the space-time scroll. 100,000 high-grade essence crystals. Soon, someone was the first to bid. 110,000. Someone else followed. Following which, the bidding continued. The price of the spacetime scroll soon reached 240,000 high-grade essence crystals. Nye Tian heard the bidding voices around him. He could not help but gasp. If this continued, he might not be able to buy the spacetime scroll even if he went bankrupt. Huff! Nye Tian let out a long breath. This was the first time he was so nervous about money. The key was that the spacetime scroll was too important to him. Just as Nye Tian was about to make a bid, a sharp voice rang out. 300,000 high-grade essence crystals. The voice was sharp like a steel blade. A blade intent spread in the air. It actually pressed towards the people in the auction hall and disappeared in a flash. What a strong blade intent! Everyone's heart skipped a beat. They involuntarily looked towards the direction where the voice came from. It was a VIP room. No one could be seen, but there was a shadow of a blade. It was formed by the blade intent and did not dissipate. The sharpness of the blade intent pierced through people's hearts. It's Dao Guangxing. So domineering. The crowd's eyes trembled. They felt the terrifying blade intent and shouted out the name of that person. This person released his blade intent towards the crowd. He was extremely arrogant. The next moment, the crowd started to discuss in low voices. It's Dao Guangxing. He is the sworn brother of Crown Prince Xian Shao. I heard that he is a ruthless character who kills without batting an eye. His strength is terrifying. We cannot afford to offend him. So he is the Crown Prince's man. No wonder he is so arrogant. But isn't he looking down on the Yu family by doing this? You still don't know, right? The Crown Prince and the Yu family have been on bad terms for a long time. A few months ago, The Crown Prince personally went to the Yu family to ask for Dao Quangxing's hand in marriage to Yu Jiao. He was rejected by the Yu family head, Lord Yu Qingshan. With the Crown Prince's personality, he will fall out with the Yu family sooner or later. Chapter 756. Nie Tian understood a lot from Xian Miaomiao's explanation. The fight for the throne was between Crown Prince Xian Shao and Prince Xian Qiu. The Qi clan supported Prince Xian Qiu, the Lu and Yun clans supported Crown Prince Xian Shao, and the Yu clan remained neutral. Crown Prince Xian Shao proposed to the Yu clan on behalf of Dao Quangxing. Unfortunately, the Yu clan rejected him. So the Yu Qingshan that Nie Tian heard was the Yu clan leader. One had to admit that Yu Qingshan was quite daring to reject Crown Prince Xian Shao. Yu Qingshan probably doted on Yu Jiao and did not want her to marry someone like Dao Quangxing. Dao Quangxing was indeed arrogant to be so arrogant in the Yu clan's auction hall. He must be relying on the Crown Prince's influence. As Dao Quangxing released his saber intent, the auction hall became silent. Everyone knew how domineering Dao Quangxing was. Wasn't it suicide to fight with him now? 310,000 high-grade yuan crystals. Just then, a calm voice was heard. It came from the hall. Immediately, everyone looked towards the source of the voice. They saw a young man around 18 or 19 years old with a smile on his face. The person who spoke was Nie Tian. Who is that? What gall, to actually dare snatch something from Dao Quangxing? Yeah, this kid must be new and does not know Dao Quangxing's reputation. His life is in danger. Dao Quangxing kills without batting an eye. This kid is dead meat. The crowd looked at Nie Tian and started discussing. Nie Tian, however, completely ignored these voices. His face was calm, as if these words had nothing to do with him. As Nie Tian's voice faded, the blade intent phantom outside the VIP room trembled for a moment, before a surprised voice rang out, 400,000 high-grade origin crystals. 410,000. Nie Tian did not hesitate and continued to bid. Go to hell. As soon as his voice fell, the illusory blade intent that had been condensed in midair suddenly flickered. In an instant, it transformed into a streak of light and charged towards Nie Tian. A cold and tyrannical saber intent surged over. Dao Quangxing was indeed tyrannical. Just because of Nie Tian's bid, he actually directly killed him. Dao Quangxing, how dare you? Without waiting for Nie Tian to make a move, Yu Jiao's figure soared into the sky and slammed her palm down. Boom! The mighty palm force bombarded the illusory saber will, and the two forces exploded in the air, producing a shocking sound. What? The crowd was struck dumb when they saw the scene in the sky. No one had expected that Yu Jiao would fight with Dao Quangxing. Crown Prince Xian Shao had once proposed to the Yu family on behalf of Dao Quangxing, and the person he proposed to was none other than Yu Jiao. The fact that the Yu family did not agree to the marriage proposal was Yu Jiao's own attitude. Dao Quangxing had a great reputation in Mystic Moon City, but it wasn't a good one. Even if he was the Crown Prince's sworn brother, Yu Jiao wouldn't give herself to him. Yu Jiao, don't be a busybody. In the next moment, Dao Quangxing's voice resounded in the VIP room. It was sharp and domineering, bringing with it a thick, oppressive aura. Yu Jiao's figure froze in midair, her graceful figure faintly discernible. She frowned and said in a Dao tone, Dao Quangxing, I know that you are tyrannical and arrogant, but this is the Yu family's auction house. In an auction, fair competition is the most important thing. What is the meaning of you trying to kill this young master? Are all the Crown Prince's men like you? You can't compete with him. Yu Jiao's words were loud and clear, and the crowd looked at her with a solemn expression. I, Dao Quangxing, am arrogant. Anyone who tries to snatch something from me must die. Dao Quangxing ignored Yu Jiao's attitude and became even more arrogant. The oppressive aura in his voice became even stronger. Hearing Dao Quangxing's words, Nie Tian's eyes turned gloomy and he couldn't help but shake his head. Dao Guangxing was merely the sworn brother of Crown Prince Xian Shao. To put it bluntly, he was just a dog raised by Xian Shao. If a dog was so arrogant, then one could only imagine how arrogant Crown Prince Xian Shao was. Nie Tian couldn't stand Xian Qiu's shrewdness, but he couldn't stand Xian Zhao's arrogance even more. No matter what, Xian Qiu was still reasonable, but this Xian Shao was probably unreasonable. Dao Guangxing, Yu Jiao was so angry that her face turned red. Her chest heaved up and down violently, and one could even see the deep ravine between her breasts. She was also angry. She didn't expect Dao Guangxing to be so arrogant. An auction is an auction. Why are you fighting? At this moment, an old voice sounded. It came from the VIP room not far away from Dao Guangxing. The voice was calm and indifferent, but it was cold. Who is this? How dare he interfere in the matter between Yu Jiao and Dao Guangxing? The crowd's eyes narrowed as they looked at the VIP room. The conflict between Yu Jiao and Dao Guangxing was actually a conflict between the Yu family and the Crown Prince. If this person dared to interfere in such a matter, his status must be high. Hearing this voice, Nie Tian's eyes trembled. He then laughed and murmured, "It's this old man. I didn't expect him to be here." Nie Tian could tell that the person who spoke was none other than Huojia. After Huojia spoke, the VIP room that Dao Guangxing was in fell silent for a moment. A moment later, a voice sounded out, "Since Master Hua has spoken, I will give you face. I will not fight in the Yu family's auction today." "Thank you, Master Hua." Yu Jiao stood in the air, and her expression softened a little. "It's Master Huojia." The crowd's eyes trembled. They immediately understood that the person who spoke was the president of the Blacksmith Guild, the #1 blacksmith in the Black Moon Empire, Huojia. No wonder Dao Guangxing restrained himself. It was Huojia who spoke. Huojia's status was very high. In the Black Moon Empire, not to mention Dao Guangxing, even Crown Prince Xian Shao and the Emperor had to be respectful to him. This was the status of a blacksmith. The tense atmosphere calmed down because of Huojia's words, and the auction continued. 500,000 high-grade crystals. Although Dao Guangxing didn't make a move, it didn't mean that he would give up on the Grade 5 spacetime scroll. He had to fight for it. 510,000. Nie Tian didn't back down at all. 600,000, 610,000. 700,000, 710,000. 1,000,000. The two of them continued to bid, and the crowd couldn't react in time. Finally, Dao Guangxing called out a sky-high price of 1,000,000 high-grade crystals. The entire auction hall fell into a deathly silence. Although the Grade 5 spacetime scroll was good, the price of 1,000,000 high-grade crystals far exceeded the price of the scroll itself. At this moment, the crowd's gaze was focused on Nie Tian, waiting for him to bid. Chapter 757. I'll let you have it. Hiss. As soon as Nie Tian said that, the crowd gasped in unison. Then, some of them started to snicker. Nie Tian said that on purpose. It was obvious that he wanted to kill Guangxing. But in the eyes of many, he was courting death by doing that. In the entire Dark Moon Empire, there were not many people who dared to toy with Dao Guangxing. "Brat, you're messing with me." As soon as Nie Tian said that, a roar suddenly sounded. In the VIP room, an extremely sharp saber aura surged and covered the sky as if it was going to tear heaven and earth apart. Boom! In the next moment, the curtain of the VIP room could not withstand the pressure of the saber aura and exploded. A domineering figure appeared in front of everyone. Dao Guangxing sat in the VIP room. Although he was sitting, it could be seen that he was extremely burly. He was probably a head taller than an ordinary person. His facial features were very handsome, but when they were put together, they gave off a terrifying feeling. A terrifying saber aura surged around Dao Guangxing. His entire body was like a sharp and domineering saber. He stared at Nie Tian, and the sharp killing intent almost condensed and enveloped Nie Tian. "Oh no! Is Dao Guangxing going to attack again? The eyes of the crowd trembled when they sensed Dao Guangxing's killing intent. So what if I toy with you? Nie Tian looked at Dao Guangxing. Not only was there no fear, but the corners of his mouth curled up into a playful smile. He could sense that Dao Guangxing's strength was at the 5th level of the heavenly evolution realm, but his saber Dao was not low. It was actually at the saber spirit realm. His saber aura was extremely domineering and terrifying. The crowd turned to look at Nie Tian with a strange expression. Was this guy crazy? He knew that Dao Guangxing could not be offended, but he still wanted to. Wasn't he courting death? Dao Guangxing's eyes trembled, and he suddenly stood up. His burly body was 2 meters tall, and his entire body emitted a sharp saber aura that trembled in the air. His lips curled into a cold smile as he shifted his gaze to another VIP room. It was the room where Hua Jia was located. Kid, Grandmaster Hua is here. I'll give him some face and let you catch your breath first. If you dare to take even half a step out of the Yu family's auction house, I, Dao Guangxing, will definitely take your life. Dao Guangxing's face contorted as a cold, killing intent radiated from him. He didn't dare to defy Hua Jia's words, but since Nie Tian had tricked him in public, he would not let it go. As long as Nie Tian dared to walk out of the Yu family auction house, he would definitely kill him. All right, I'll wait for you. Nie Tian smiled faintly. His voice was extremely calm, without the slightest bit of emotion. Because he didn't put Dao Guangxing in his eyes at all. The crowd felt a chill run down their spines as they tried to guess who Nie Tian was, to think that he would be able to ignore Dao Guangxing's threat. At this point, the news of Nie Tian killing Yun Yu and crippling Yun Zong had yet to spread. If Dao Guangxing knew about this, would he still be so insolent? Dao Guangxing stared at Nie Tian for a long time. His heart felt like it was being bitten by 10,000 maggots, which made him feel indescribably uncomfortable. After a long time, Dao Guangxing's complexion turned slightly better, and he finally sat back down. The disturbance caused by the 5th-rank spacetime scroll had come to an end, but the enmity between Nie Tian and Dao Guangxing had been thoroughly established. Nie Tian was a little disappointed that he hadn't obtained a 5th-rank spacetime scroll. However, he reckoned that Hua Jia should have one. If he needed one, he could just ask the old man for one. He didn't have many crystals on him at the moment. The gold card for the 3,000 small worlds couldn't be used in the spatial world. The few crystals he had were obtained from Xianqi Yunmu and the others. Nie Tian was pondering whether or not he should sell some items. Otherwise, he wouldn't have enough crystals to purchase spirit herbs. At some point, Nie Tian looked toward Hua Jia's VIP room, and his gaze suddenly trembled. He was baffled. Why would the latter appear in the auction house? Could it be that something valuable would appear in the auction house today? Nie Tian guessed that Hua Jia must have obtained some information and knew that something good would appear in the auction house, which was why he had come. Given Hua Jia's identity and status, he had come personally. This item was certainly very valuable. What could it be? Nie Tian was puzzled. After a moment, Yu Jiao's figure appeared in the auction house again. She smiled brightly, and her gaze involuntarily flickered toward Nie Tian. The next item for auction is an ancient pill cauldron. Our appraiser can't determine the age of this pill cauldron, but he is certain that it contains the true meaning of Tool's path and alchemy path. It should have been left behind by an ancient master who cultivated both alchemy and alchemy. Ancient pill cauldron. True meaning of Tool's path and alchemy path. A master who cultivated both alchemy and alchemy. As soon as Yu Jiao's voice faded, the entire auction house boiled over. The crowd's gazes became heated. They all wanted to see with their own eyes what kind of divine weapon this ancient pill cauldron was. Just then, Yu Jiao continued, however, this pill cauldron is a little damaged. The Emperor Light has disappeared, and there seems to be a seal inside it. Therefore, it can only be considered a half-emperor weapon. Half-emperor weapon? The crowd's eyes sparkled, and their anticipation was greatly reduced. Nie Tian's gaze, however, became heated. He guessed that Hua Jiao was here for this pill cauldron. Just then, a cultivator appeared and walked over with a pill cauldron. The pill cauldron was 1 meter tall and 1 meter in diameter. It had an ancient design and was entirely black. Strange creatures were carved on it, and they seemed to emit an evil aura. The strangest thing about the pill cauldron was that it only had 3 legs. As far as Nie Tian knew, for thousands of years, the majority of pill cauldrons were 4-legged. 3-legged pill cauldrons were extremely rare. Could it be? Nie Tian looked at the 3-legged pill cauldron and observed it carefully. Suddenly, his eyes released a blazing light, and his whole body stiffened for a moment. After a few seconds, Nie Tian calmed down a little, but his face was still full of shock, and his heart was beating fast. In his previous life, he had read some ancient books and seen records about the 10 great pill cauldrons of the ancient times. However, these pill cauldrons were famous in the ancient times, and they existed hundreds of thousands of years ago. At that time, the human race hadn't risen yet. Nie Tian just took it as an interest, and accidentally noted it down. At this moment, he suddenly remembered that the 3-legged pill cauldron in front of him was very similar to the 3-legged mysterious pill cauldron of the 10 great pill cauldrons of the ancient times. Nie Tian hadn't seen the original 3-legged mysterious pill cauldron, but he had seen the picture. With his perceptive ability, he had a photographic memory for ordinary things, and he remembered the picture of the 3-legged mysterious pill cauldron very clearly. 3-legged pill cauldrons were rare, and combined with Yu Jiao's introduction of the pill cauldron, Nie Tian was basically sure that the pill cauldron in front of him was one of the 10 great pill cauldrons of the ancient times, the 3-legged mysterious pill cauldron. Nie Tian never dreamed that the pill cauldron of the ancient times would actually be passed down to this day, and he would even encounter it. It could only be said that this was fate. When luck came, it couldn't be stopped. Nie Tian's heart was beating wildly, and he stared at Yu Jiao with blazing eyes, waiting for her to announce the price of the 3-legged mysterious pill cauldron. Chapter 758. Yu Jiao stood on the auction stage and swept her gaze over the crowd in the auction hall. She noticed Nie Tian again, and felt the fervor in the latter's eyes. She could not help being slightly stunned and felt strange in her heart. Could it be that he's also interested in the pill cauldron? Generally speaking, those who were interested in pill cauldrons were basically alchemists, blacksmiths, or spirit array masters. Unfortunately, Nie Tian did not look like it because the killing intent on him was too heavy. Although the 3-legged profound cauldron was very good, not many people paid attention to it. This pill cauldron is a pseudo-emperor artifact. This auction house is selling it at the price of a Tier 8 spirit artifact. The base price is 1 million high-grade essence crystals. Yu Jiao did not beat around the bush and directly quoted the base price of the 3-legged profound cauldron. Hiss! Hearing this price, the crowd sucked in a cold breath. This price was too high for most people. But to those alchemists and blacksmiths who were interested in the pill cauldron, it was acceptable. These people were all wealthy. When Nie Tian heard this price, his heart involuntarily turned cold. He could not afford this price. Nie Tian's gaze involuntarily looked in the direction where Hua Jiao was. If the 3-legged profound cauldron was bid by the latter, he might still have a chance to get it. He reckoned that even Hua Jia did not know the true value of the 3-legged profound cauldron. The 3-legged profound cauldron was one of the 10 great ancient pill cauldrons. And in ancient times, it was the fiend god era that was hard for humans to imagine. There were once deity realm martial artists. Nie Tian knew that the refiner of the 3-legged profound cauldron was absolutely a divine rank blacksmith, who surpassed Tier 9 blacksmith. Hence, the 3-legged profound cauldron was already not a spirit artifact, but a divine artifact. Perhaps inside the three-legged profound cauldron contained the secret of seeing through the heavenly emperor realm to advance to the deity realm. Tools path true meaning and alchemy path true meaning from an ancient divine rank blacksmith. Just these had immeasurable value. Nie Tian only felt at this time that essence crystals were useful too. After Yu Jiao quoted the base price of the three-legged profound cauldron, the auction hall fell into dead silence. The vast majority of people felt that 1 million high-grade essence crystals to buy a damaged pill cauldron was not worth it. Haha, since no one is bidding, this old man will bid 1 million high-grade origin crystals. A moment later, a familiar laughter resounded. It was Huojia. It's Grandmaster Huojia. The crowd's eyes trembled violently. They knew that Huojia was the one who had made the bid, and their hearts were filled with an indescribable excitement. Nie Tian laughed bitterly in his heart and muttered, "It's fine to let this old man get the cauldron. He really didn't have the strength to bid now, otherwise, he definitely wouldn't have given the three-legged profound cauldron to Huojia." When Huojia opened his mouth, the entire place fell silent. No one was willing to bid for the three-legged profound cauldron, and no one dared to compete with Huojia. As expected, the three-legged profound cauldron was bought by Huojia at a low price. Nie Tian felt a slight pain in his heart, but he had a plan in mind. He would find a way to get the three-legged mysterious cauldron back from Huojia in the future. At this moment, in a VIP room, Huojia was sitting upright, and behind him stood a middle-aged man dressed in white. "Master, did we come here for this pill cauldron?" The white-robed man's expression was slightly puzzled as he asked. "By Luo, don't underestimate this alchemy cauldron. Since it was passed down from ancient times, it must have its own unique features. Since no one is bidding for it, I will just buy it and treat it as a collection." Huojia's goat-like beard curled up as he smiled faintly. Only Huojia would buy a decorative item with 1 million upper-grade essence crystals. Huojia didn't know the true value of the three-legged profound cauldron. Moreover, he didn't come to the auction house for the three-legged profound cauldron, but for something else. Following this was a break in the middle of the auction. Nie Tian couldn't sit still anymore, so he left hurriedly and went backstage. "Mister, is there anything I can help you with?" A sweet voice was heard behind Nie Tian. Yu Jiao had appeared out of nowhere, and she stared at Nie Tian with her big, watery eyes in confusion. She had never seen Nie Tian before, but he had dared to provoke Dao Guangxing. His boldness alone was hard to understand. Because of this, Yu Jiao had a good impression of Nie Tian. There is indeed something. Nie Tian looked at Yu Jiao. The latter wore a long, green dress, and her chest was exaggeratedly full. Under the dim light, she exuded a charming charm. However, Nie Tian's eyes were very pure, without the slightest bit of lust. "Mister, please speak." Yu Jiao smiled sweetly, her eyes sparkling. This girl was too beautiful. Every move she made was filled with temptation. "My name is Nie Tian. I would like to auction a few items," Nie Tian said indifferently with a calm gaze. Yu Jiao's beautiful eyes trembled slightly, and then she smiled and said, "Mr. Nie, please follow me." Under normal circumstances, the auction house didn't allow people to participate in the auction at the last minute. However, Yu Jiao had a good impression of Nie Tian, so she was willing to make an exception for him. Nie Tian followed Yu Jiao to the inner hall and handed over the items he wanted to auction. He wanted to auction over a dozen rank 7 spirit cores, a rank 7 battle armor, and a heaven-ranked martial technique. When Nie Tian took out these items, Yu Jiao was stunned. The rank 7 spirit cores were fine, but the rank 7 battle armor and a heaven-ranked martial technique were extraordinary. Who exactly was Nie Tian? Why did he have these items? Nie Tian had expected Yu Jiao's reaction. He knew that even in the Sumer world, a rank 7 battle armor and a heaven-ranked martial technique were very rare. Originally, Nie Tian didn't want to auction the heaven-ranked martial technique. However, he did need essence crystals. Furthermore, there was some risk in auctioning the rank 7 battle armor. If someone recognized it as the 17th prince's item, it would be terrible. Yu Jiao stared at Nie Tian with her beautiful eyes and said, "Mr. Nie, these items can be auctioned later. Our appraiser will give an estimate. If they are auctioned, the auction house will need to take 10% of the auction fee." 10% of the auction fee. Nie Tian clenched his teeth in his heart, but he could only nod. Yu Jiao seemed to notice something. She laughed and said, "Mr. Nie, you seem to need essence crystals?" "Yes." Nie Tian didn't hide it. He nodded and said, "I need some spirit materials and spirit herbs, but I don't have enough essence crystals on hand." Yu Jiao giggled and said, "Mr. Nie, how about this? Write down the herbs you need, and I will help you gather them. We will sell all the herbs to you at the base price." This is too embarrassing." Nie Tian was stunned for a moment before he laughed. Just now, he was still worried that he didn't have the herbs he wanted. Now that Yu Jiao offered to help, it couldn't be better. Yu Jiao didn't put on an act and said, "Yu Jiao wants to be friends with you." "Sure." Nie Tian smiled faintly. He immediately listed out the herbs he needed and handed it to Yu Jiao. She didn't even look at it and directly handed it to the auction house's administrator, instructing him to gather all the herbs as soon as possible. Nie Tian didn't stay any longer. He turned around and returned to the auction house. "Mr. Nie." Just as Nie Tian turned around, Yu Jiao called out, "Miss Yu Jiao, is there anything else?" Nie Tian turned around and smiled faintly. "Nothing." Yu Jiao smiled sweetly. She paused for a moment and said, "I just wanted to remind you that Dao Quangxing isn't easy to deal with. Be careful." "Thank you." Nie Tian's lips curled up with confidence as he turned around and left. Chapter 759. Nie Tian returned to the auction hall, and the auction continued. Following that, Nie Tian felt much more relaxed. He didn't need to worry about the herbs anymore, and he could bid for anything that he was interested in. The rest of the auction was relatively quiet. Nie Tian's dozen or so spirit cores were sold at a good price, much higher than he had expected. The next item is a 7th grade battle armor. This battle armor is called the Snowstorm Battle Armor, made by a fire armor master. Yu Jiao introduced with a smile, and at the same time, her eyes inadvertently looked towards Nie Tian. 7th grade battle armor, the work of a fire armor master. The crowd's eyes narrowed, and revealed unconcealable passion. The fire armor master was extremely famous in the Black Moon Empire, and his name represented the highest level of equipment forging in the empire. As long as they heard this name, the quality of the 7th grade battle armor was guaranteed. Yu Jiao, bullshit! Just as the crowd was getting excited, a sharp voice suddenly rang out. Dao Quangxing's figure stood up once more. He was enraged as he roared, "The Blizzard battle armor is Prince Xianqi's personal armor. How could it appear in the auction house? Prince Xianqi's item?" Yu Jiao was slightly stunned, and her expression was slightly embarrassed. She suddenly thought of something, and her eyes unconsciously looked towards Nie Tian. When Nie Tian took out the Snowstorm battle armor, Yu Jiao felt that it was somewhat familiar, and it turned out that she had seen it on Prince Xianqi. Yu Jiao was still wondering how Nie Tian could take out a 7th grade battle armor made by a fire armor master. Now, things seemed to have become complicated. Could it be that Nie Tian did something to Prince Xianqi? "Yu Jiao, I want to personally inspect this battle armor." Dao Quangxing shouted coldly, and his figure moved, descending on the auction stage. "Dao Quangxing, what are you trying to do?" Yu Jiao instantly became nervous, and she subconsciously took a step back and shouted, "This is the Yu family's auction hall, are you trying to rob something?" "Rob something?" Dao Quangxing's burly figure trembled for a moment before he sneered. "The Snow Wind battle armor belongs to Prince Xianqi. For it to appear in the Yu family's auction house for no reason, the Yu family has to give the crown prince an explanation." Yu Jiao's heart sank. She knew that Crown Prince Xian Shao and Prince Xian Qi were brothers from the same mother. If the matter regarding the snowstorm battle armor was not given a satisfactory explanation, Crown Prince Xian Shao would definitely not let it go, and the Yu family would most likely suffer a blow. Ever since the marriage proposal on behalf of Dao Quangxing was rejected, Xian Shao had been looking for an opportunity to suppress the Yu family. If Xian Shao managed to get a hold of their weakness because of a mere armor, the Yu family would be in deep trouble. At this time, many black-robed martial artists swarmed out from the auction hall. They were the hidden guards of the Yu family. However, they did not dare to make a move. After all, Dao Quangxing was the crown prince's man. They could not afford to offend him. Explain what? Right at this moment, a cold voice rang out from the auction hall. In the next moment, a figure soared into the sky, leaping onto the auction stage and standing between Yu Jiao and Dao Quangxing. Nia Tian. Yu Jiao's eyes narrowed when she saw the figure in front of her. Nia Tian's entire body surged with surging sword intent. His sword aura was like a rainbow, forcing Dao Quangxing to retreat repeatedly. Dao Quangxing's eyes narrowed when he sensed the sword intent in the air. He immediately released his saber aura as well. His saber intent bloomed in the air. It was sharp to the extreme, and it pressed down from all directions. Boom! 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 A violent explosion sounded in the air. Sword and saber collided intensely. Nia Tian and Dao Quangxing retreated several steps at the same time. They were actually equally matched. Nia Tian's sword intent was very strong, but he was only at the sword force realm. Dao Quangxing's saber intent was slightly weaker, but he was at the saber spirit realm, which was one realm higher than Nia Tian. Dao Quangxing could not conceal the surprise in his eyes. The other party was clearly only at the second level of heavenly evolution realm. How could he fight head-on with him? The crowd was stunned by the scene on the auction stage. No one expected that Nia Tian would not be at a disadvantage when facing Dao Quangxing head-on. Dao Quangxing, don't be too presumptuous. This is the Yu clan's auction house, not the crown prince's residence. Yu Jiao was also enraged at this moment. She reprimanded in a cold manner. Dao Quangxing's eyes narrowed, and he sneered. Yu Jiao, as long as you give me a reasonable explanation and tell me where the snowstorm battle armor came from, I will leave immediately. The Yu clan's auction house is only in charge of the auction. We will not reveal the seller's information. Yu Jiao responded coldly. It's me. But just as she finished speaking, Nia Tian took a step forward and stared at Dao Quangxing with a murderous gaze. He said coldly, "The person who is auctioning the snowstorm battle armor is me. Is there a problem?" Yu Jiao was stunned. She did not know what Nia Tian wanted to do. You. Dao Quangxing's eyes widened, and his eyes were filled with killing intent. He said coldly, "The snowstorm battle armor belongs to Prince Xian Qi. Why is it in your hands?" The crowd was also stunned, and their gazes focused on Nia Tian. Prince Xian Qi's item was in Nia Tian's hands. Did the latter do something to the former? Do I have to believe that the snowstorm battle armor belongs to Prince Xian Qi? Nia Tian's expression was calm, and he said with a faint smile, "Let me tell you right now. The snowstorm battle armor belongs to me. It has nothing to do with Prince Xian Qi." Dao Quangxing's face twisted, and a terrifying battle intent was released from his body. He said coldly, "The snowstorm battle armor was forged by Grandmaster Huijia on behalf of Prince Xian Qi. There is only one of it in the world. Where did you get it from?" "Only one?" Nia Tianling laughed, and he looked at the VIP room where Grandmaster Huijia was. He said in a clear voice, "The snowstorm battle armor is a gift from Grandmaster Huijia. If you don't believe me, I can ask Grandmaster Huijia to personally testify." "Ask Grandmaster Huijia to personally testify?" The crowd's eyes trembled, and they looked at the VIP room in disbelief. In the VIP room, Grandmaster Huijia sat upright, and his face was a little pale. Teacher, who is this guy? Why is he biting people? Bai Luo, who was behind Grandmaster Huijia, frowned and asked. Grandmaster Huijia shook his head slightly and then he smiled bitterly. This guy is really hard to deal with. He always gives me a hard time. As he spoke, Grandmaster Huijia stood up and slowly walked out of the VIP room. It really is Grandmaster Huijia. He came out. When the crowd saw Grandmaster Huijia's face clearly, they almost burst into an uproar. Yu Jiao was also stunned, and her face was full of shock. Grandmaster Huijia really came out. Is he going to prove it to Nie Tian? Grandmaster Huijia, Prince Xian Qi asked you to forge the snowstorm battle armor half a year ago. At that time, you only forged one, right? Dao Quangxing looked at Grandmaster Huijia respectfully, and he did not dare to be arrogant. Yes, Grandmaster Huijia nodded and said with a smile, I only forged one snowstorm battle armor at that time. Brat, I knew you were talking nonsense. As soon as Grandmaster Huijia finished speaking, Dao Quangxing revealed his ferocious face, and he wanted to tear Nie Tian into pieces. Chapter 760. Huijia said indifferently. His expression did not change, and his heart did not jump. The crowd was stunned by Huijia's words, and there was no reaction for more than 10 seconds. Who would have thought that someone of Huijia's high status would actually explain for Nie Tian? Huijia personally forged the snowstorm battle armor for Nie Tian. Who was Nie Tian? The crowd's eyes flickered, and they could not wrap their heads around this. Previously, some people thought that Nie Tian was courting death by provoking Dao Quangxing. But now, it seemed that the power behind Nie Tian was not weaker than Crown Prince Xian Shao, and might even be stronger. Dao Quangxing was stunned as well. His mouth was agape, and his throat felt as though it was stuffed with donkey hair. He was speechless. Since Huijia had personally proven that he was the one who gave the snowstorm battle armor to Nie Tian, this matter could not be dragged on any further. Dao Quangxing was not a fool, and he could naturally see some clues. But the key was that Huijia could not be offended. Not to mention him, even Crown Prince Xian Shao would not dare to question Huijia's words. Miss Yu Jiao. At this time, before Dao Quangxing could speak, Huijia continued, What is the starting price for the snowstorm battle armor? This old man wants to buy it back, and I am willing to pay double the starting price for it. How about it? Yu Jiao was stunned for a moment, and then she smiled. Master Hua, since the snowstorm battle armor was forged by you, the Yu family auction house will not reject you. We will buy the snowstorm battle armor from young Master Nie Tian at double the starting price. It is a gift to Master Hua. Not bad, little lass. You are even better at doing business than Yu Qingshan. Huijia laughed. All right, I will remember this favor. The snowstorm battle armor is mine now. Who asked me to be so sentimental? Huijia said as he returned to the VIP lounge. Nie Tian looked at Huijia's figure, and the corners of his mouth curled up. This old fellow was also first-rate when it came to lying, and his way of doing things was also watertight. Huijia buying the snowstorm battle armor was obviously to clean up Nie Tian's mess. If the snowstorm battle armor was bought by someone else, Crown Prince Xian Shao would definitely know that it was Xian Qi. At that time, Nie Tian would be in trouble. Old man Hua, thank you for testifying for me, Nie Tian called out to Huijia in a calm and natural manner as if they were old friends. Fire Armor's figure froze, but he did not turn around. He merely waved his hand and said, You're welcome. After returning to the VIP room, Huijia smiled bitterly in his heart and muttered, That little brat is too cunning. He's clearly using this old man. This disciple is truly worrisome. Disciple? Bai Luo, who was at the side, was stunned for a moment. He asked, Nie Tian is junior? Huijia shook his head with a smile and said, Not yet, but very soon. Huijia was still very confident, certain that Nie Tian would lose without a doubt. Just like that, the commotion caused by the snow-wind battle armor calmed down. However, Dao Guangxing's heart was filled with fear towards Nie Tian, and his eyes were filled with viciousness. Following that, the auction continued. Nie Tian's heaven-ranked martial arts scroll was successfully sold for a sky-high price of 5 million high-grade origin crystals. It was 4 times higher than the 3-legged profound cauldron's price. Nie Tian felt regret in his heart. If he had auctioned the heaven-ranked martial arts scroll earlier, he would have been able to compete with Huojia for the 3-legged profound cauldron. Following that, the auction came to an end. There was only one last item left. After a moment, Yu Jiao's figure appeared. She had a smile on her face and said in a sweet voice, "Now, let's auction the last item of this auction, the Emperor Weapon Catalog." Emperor Weapon Catalog. The crowd's eyes lit up and focused. Rank 9 spirit tools were known as Emperor tools. Normally, Emperor tools would have a catalog that recorded the refining method, refining materials, and other information about the refining of Emperor tools. It was not an exaggeration to say that the Emperor Weapon Catalog was even more precious than a rank 9 Emperor tool. This was because a rank 9 Emperor tool was just a spirit tool. However, if one obtained the Emperor Weapon Catalog, one could refine many Emperor tools. The Emperor Weapon Catalog was the favorite of blacksmiths. At this moment, Nie Tian's face also sank. He suddenly realized that Huojia did not come to the auction for the 3-legged profound cauldron. He came for the Emperor Weapon Catalog. The Emperor Weapon Catalog was a priceless treasure to blacksmith. However, to Nie Tian it was basically useless. Nie Tian regretted not bidding against Huojia for the 3-legged profound cauldron. When the Emperor Weapon Catalog appeared, the crowd's eyes involuntarily looked in Huojia's direction. It was obvious that this catalog was specially prepared for Huojia. The Emperor Weapon Catalog has been appraised by the auction house's appraiser. It is slightly damaged, but it is not very serious. The auction house will sell it at the price of a high-grade rank 8 spirit tool. The starting price is 2 million high-grade essence crystals, Yu Jiao said indifferently. Her eyes were also looking at Huojia's VIP room. Basically, only blacksmiths would be interested in the Emperor Weapon Catalog. If Huojia did not bid, the Emperor Weapon Catalog would not be able to sell. Alright, this old man bids 2 million high-grade essence crystals. Huojia did not stand on ceremony and directly bid. Unsurprisingly, the Emperor Weapon Catalog fell into Huojia's hands. Nie Tian smiled bitterly and shook his head. In this auction, Huojia was the biggest winner. After the auction ended, the crowd slowly left. Nie Tian went backstage to collect his essence crystals, spiritual materials, and spiritual medicine. Yu Jiao was already waiting for Nie Tian. She handed him an interspatial bag and a gold card. She smiled sweetly and said, "Young Master Nie, your things were auctioned for a total of 7 million high-grade essence crystals. After deducting the auction fee and the essence crystals used to purchase the medicinal materials, you are left with 23 million high-grade essence crystals. All of them have been stored in the gold card." Alright. Nie Tian took the gold card and put it away. He then opened the interspatial bag and checked the medicinal materials carefully. He was only relieved when he confirmed that there were no mistakes. In the following month, he would have to rely on these medicinal materials to quickly increase his mental strength. Nie Tian packed his things and left. Yu Jiao did not say much and watched Nie Tian leave. Nie Tian. Yu Jiao looked at the direction where Nie Tian left and murmured the latter's name softly. There was some confusion in her beautiful eyes. At this moment, a middle-aged man in gray appeared behind her. He bowed slightly and said, "Miss, I have the results of the person you asked me to investigate. Speak." Yu Jiao's eyes flickered. She could not help but feel excited. The man in gray said respectfully, "Nie Tian only appeared in Mystic Moon City today. There was no information about him before this. However, after he came to Mystic Moon City, he did a few big things in Song Dragon Academy. The man in gray told her about how Nie Tian killed Yun Yu and crippled Yun Zong. Yu Jiao was stunned and did not speak for a long time. After a while, Yu Jiao calmed down a little and said, "So, Nie Tian is 19th Highness's man?" "I'm not sure." The man in gray said, "It seems that he does not know 19th Highness. However, 19th Highness did save his life from Yun Haichao." "Alright, I understand." Yu Jiao waved her hand, signaling for the gray-robed man to leave. However, the look in her eyes became complicated. She really couldn't figure out who Nie Tian was. He was a member of the Yun clan, the 19th prince, and now he was related to Fire Armor. Chapter 761. After bidding farewell to Yu Jiao, Nie Tian walked out of the auction house without bidding farewell to Hu Jia. His figure was extremely fast. After a while, he arrived at a secluded corner of the imperial city. "Dao Quangxing, come out." Nie Tian used his divine sense to check the surroundings. After confirming that there was no one around, his lips curled into a cold smile. He had already sensed that there were a few people following him when he left the auction house. One of them was extremely familiar. It was Dao Quangxing. Initially, Nie Tian didn't want to kill anyone. However, Dao Quangxing was hot on his heels and had even delivered himself to his doorstep. If he continued to run, others would really think that Nie Tian was a pushover. Nie Tian. As soon as Nie Tian spoke, a cold and sharp voice rang out. Then, several figures appeared from the dark with an extremely strong murderous intent. These people were all heavenly evolution martial artists. Among them, Dao Quangxing was the strongest. He was at Heavenly Evolution Level 5, the Spirit of the Blade. Dao Quangxing's gaze was cold. His entire body emitted a sharp murderous intent that enveloped Nie Tian. He smiled sinisterly. "Nie Tian, I didn't expect you to really walk out of the Yu family's auction house. I didn't expect you to really dare to follow me." Nie Tian's expression was indifferent. His voice was so calm that it made one's heart palpitate. Dao Quangxing glared at Nie Tian. The calmer the latter was, the angrier he was. Who was Dao Quangxing? He wanted to do whatever he wanted in the imperial city. Nie Tian had disobeyed him several times in the auction house. Now, he was still looking down on him. This made him feel humiliated. "Young Master Quang, this brat is only at Heavenly Evolution Level 2. You don't have to do anything. Our brothers can take care of him." A person behind Dao Quangxing stepped forward and stared at Nie Tian with a disdainful expression. "Alright." Dao Quangxing's lips twitched. He took a step back decisively. He had fought with Nie Tian at the auction house earlier. The latter's strength was a little strange, which made him wary. Thus, he decided to let the people around him test Nie Tian's strength. "Brothers, charge." That person sneered and took a step forward. He directly attacked with a palm strike, and a powerful palm energy whizzed out. This guy didn't know that when Nie Tian was here, he seemed to have conserved his strength, waiting to surprise Nie Tian. Courting death. Nie Tian's eyes trembled. Cold, he spat out 2 words. His body shook slightly, and a sword intent suddenly bloomed. A terrifying killing intent swept out. Swoosh. The shadow of the sword shot out, and the person who attacked was sent flying. He screamed and fell to the ground, dead on the spot. "What?" The others were shocked by the sudden scene, and they didn't know what to do. Without hesitation, Nie Tian sent out a few more sword intents. The others didn't even have time to scream before their heads were chopped off. Fresh blood splattered in front of Dao Quangxing. His pupils constricted as the fear in his eyes intensified. He knew that he could kill these people as well, but he might not be able to do it as cleanly as Nie Tian. "Dao Quangxing, your underlings are gone. It's your turn now." Nie Tian's lips twitched, and the disdain in his eyes intensified. His entire body emitted a cold, killing intent. Dao Quangxing wanted to kill him, and he wanted to kill him too. Courting death. Dao Quangxing was completely enraged. He had always been the one looking down on others, since when was it their turn to look down on him? Third slash of the annihilation blade. An enraged voice rang out. A long black blade appeared in Dao Quangxing's hand. With one slash, the space around him tightened. A terrifying sword intent was released, and the entire space was filled with killing intent. 3 shadows of the blade materialized and slashed towards Nie Tian. Dao Quangxing's saber intent was domineering and sharp, forceful and ferocious, and it carried an indomitable killing intent. Sensing the terrifying sword intent in the air, Nie Tian frowned. The 9 meridians in his body began to churn, and an endless amount of lightning energy gushed out, bathing him in lightning. Lightning dragon, kill! The corner of Nie Tian's mouth twitched slightly as he punched out. 3 enormous lightning dragons appeared in front of him and let out heaven-shaking dragon roars. Dragon might surged out in all directions. Rumble! Rumble! The shadows of the blade and the lightning dragons clashed in the air, causing the entire space to tremble. Nie Tian and Dao Quangxing both took a few steps back from the impact of the shockwave. Nie Tian stabilized his body and smiled bitterly. Without the sky/sword, I can't unleash the power of my sword intent. Right now, Nie Tian didn't have the sky/sword, so he couldn't unleash the power of his sword intent. He could only use the power of lightning to fight against Dao Quangxing. One had to admit that Dao Quangxing was strong enough. Being at the 5th level of heavenly evolution was nothing. The key was the spirit of the blade. His sword intent was domineering and powerful. Dao Quangxing's gaze froze for a moment, and his eyes instantly turned murderous. Nie Tian's strength had exceeded his expectations. The two of them continued to fight, and after several moves, they were still evenly matched. If Nie Tian had the sky/sword, he could use the proud sword art to kill Dao Quangxing. Unfortunately, he didn't have the sky/sword. I can't continue like this. It'll be bad if I attract the attention of others, Nie Tian said in his heart. The killing intent in his heart intensified. He originally didn't want to use his astral soul, but it seemed that he had no choice now. Nie Tian, you are very strong, but you have to die since you met me. Dao Quangxing was infuriated that he couldn't even gain the upper hand against Nie Tian. He roared in anger, and his expression turned malevolent. 2 surges of terrifying saber intent gushed out from his body, forming a phantom image in the air. Spirit saber clone. Nie Tian's gaze froze, and he smiled. I didn't expect you to be able to form a spirit saber clone. You are quite knowledgeable. Dao Quangxing's gaze flickered as he coldly laughed. My spirit saber clone is able to unleash the full strength of my original body. If one Dao Quangxing couldn't kill you, can't 3 Dao Quangxing do the same? After speaking, Dao Quangxing laughed maniacally, his expression savage. You can try. Nie Tian's gaze was calm, without the slightest ripple. The killing intent in his eyes didn't waver in the slightest. Courting death. Dao Quangxing was enraged. The 3 of them moved at the same time, unleashing 3 destructive blade intents at the same time. Surging killing intent spread out, and dazzling blade lights lit up half the sky. Like 3 bolts of lightning, they slashed towards Nie Tian. Nie Tian could feel the killing intent gushing towards him, yet his countenance turned even calmer. His lips twitched as he murmured, "Frigid night, ghostly slaughter." Within his body, the astral soul monument trembled, and momentarily, a vast amount of astral energy gushed out, boundless and endless. Under the darkness of the night, the astral soul monument shone resplendently, containing the coldest and most decisive killing intent. The astral energy revolved around Nie Tian, instantly transforming into the silhouette of a demon that enveloped his entire body. Die. Nie Tian's gaze flickered, as he spat out the word die. In the air, a tyrannical killing intent gushed forth, seemingly capable of annihilating and lacerating everything. Chapter 762. Nie Tian's body surged with astral energy as his 6th-ranked astral soul, Frigid Night Ghost Kill, emitted a chilling killing intent. Boom! Boom! The illusory demon that enveloped Nye Tian trembled as a deafening sound rang out in the air. It sounded like the laughter of a demon, extremely sinister. In the next moment, the horrifying saber intent in the air shone with a bright light and a sharp chill. It directly bombarded the image of the demon. Rumble! Rumble! Explosions rang out in the air as the space around them started to distort. The illusory demon trembled violently, but it still managed to block the saber intent. Huh! Dao Quangxing couldn't help but tremble as a look of shock appeared on his face. He didn't expect Nye Tian to have such a terrifying trump card. So it turned out that he wasn't the only one holding back. At this moment, Nye Tian's lips curled up in a cold, killing intent as he spat out 3 words, "It's over." Instantly, the illusory demon transformed into a sinister ghost claw, exuding a sinister killing intent. It was like a tentacle that could tear apart the night sky, destroying everything in its path. Dao Quangxing suddenly felt an intense killing intent. His eyes narrowed as his heart pounded violently. An unconcealable look of despair could be seen in his eyes. At this moment, the ghost claw slashed down mercilessly. Chi! A light sound pierced through the air. Under the pale moonlight, Dao Quangxing's body was sliced into 2. Fresh blood splattered everywhere, creating a bloody scene. Dao Quangxing's mouth was agape, but he couldn't make a single sound. The ghost claw landed on the ground, causing it to explode. The ground within a few hundred meters trembled violently, and half of Dao Quangxing's body was instantly destroyed by the boundless shockwave. The surging waves of blood only subsided after a long time. Hu! Nye Tian stood at his original position, exhaling a mouthful of turbid air. He glanced at Dao Quangxing's corpse as a cold smile appeared on his face. You brought this upon yourself. Dao Quangxing was indeed courting death. He had fought with Nye Tian at the Yu clan's auction house, and he knew that Nye Tian's strength was strange, but he still chased after him. Maybe he himself didn't expect that Nye Tian would actually have the ability to kill him. Dao Quangxing, Crown Prince Xian Zhao's sworn brother, died just like that. Nye Tian raised his hand slightly, and a space ring appeared in his hand. Then, a strand of flames shot out from his fingertip, incinerating Dao Quangxing's corpse into nothingness. There was not a single trace left. In this way, even if someone suspected him, there would be no evidence. Dao Quangxing, the sworn brother of the Crown Prince. He must have some good stuff on him, right? Nye Tian chuckled. With a flash, he disappeared. Nye Tian did not look for an inn. Instead, he went to the outskirts of Mystic Moon City and found an empty space before stopping. Tonight, he would spend the night outside the city. Let's see what good stuff Dao Quangxing has. The corners of his lips curled up as Nye Tian took out the spatial ring he had obtained from Dao Quangxing and sent a strand of his divine sense into it. After a careful search, the ring only contained some essence crystals, spirit cores, and commonly used spirit pills. There was nothing else. A token. Just as Nye Tian was feeling slightly disappointed, he suddenly noticed a golden token. Xiao. Nye Tian saw the words on the golden token and immediately understood that it was Crown Prince Xian Zhao's golden token. Previously, he had obtained a golden token from Prince Xianqiu from Crow. Now, he had the golden tokens of the 2 strongest princes in the Mystic Moon Empire. Nye Tian put the golden command medallion away, and then discovered another command medallion. The token was black and made of a special material. It seemed to be some kind of sandalwood, and the words Feng Yun were carved on it. Nye Tian took out the token and looked at it for a long time. However, he could not see anything special about it. In the end, he could only put it back. There are still a few hours before daybreak. Let's rest first. Nye Tian looked at the sky and smiled. He sat down cross-legged and entered a state of cultivation. This was his first day in the Sumi world, and it was an exciting day. On the first day, Not only did he meet many people, but he also had conflicts with many people. And unknowingly, Nie Tian was even involved in the fight for the throne between Crown Prince Xian Shao and Prince Xianqiu. Nie Tian was not afraid of anything, nor was he worried about anything. He did not care about the meeting with Xianqiu tomorrow. As long as the latter's request was unreasonable, he would not hesitate to reject it. In the battle with Yunzong, Nie Tian had devoured some energy and his strength had risen to the second stage of heavenly evolution. The power of the stars in his body had awakened 120 billion, and his mental energy had also risen to level 72. At this time, he had to stabilize his strength. In the battle with Dao Guangxing just now, Nie Tian could vaguely feel that his sword Dao realm would soon rise. He estimated that when he obtained the sword Absolute Heaven Slash in half a month, his sword Dao realm would rise to the sword Spirit realm. Everything was going well. He just had to wait to raise Xian Miao Miao's mental energy. Nie Tian looked inside his body. The 9 dragon veins had become even stronger. The power of lightning flowed within them, and there seemed to be layers of electric currents surging on them. These electric currents represented a strong life force. Combined with the true meaning of heavenly evolution, as long as Nie Tian was not fatally injured, he could instantly recover. Nie Tian then checked the spirit dragon ring. Many of the spirit dragon seals had been unlocked, and the green dragon that had been released should be more than 10 meters long. However, this kind of power was still too weak compared to the entire spirit dragon seal. It was not worth mentioning at all. After checking the spirit dragon seal, Nie Tian's divine sense entered the star domain. The domain origin formation slowly operated, roaring without stopping. At this time, the 9 star rivers were sparkling with starlight and surging with life force. The power of the stars in the first star rivers had been completely awakened, and the primal star stones that connected heaven and earth shone dazzlingly. The power of 100 billion stars in the first star rivers has been completely awakened. The full appearance of the heaven-shrouding totem has been revealed, Nie Tian murmured, but his eyes were fixed on the second star rivers, flickering with undisguised heat. He had not seen the appearance of the second star rivers, and he was ready to take a look. His divine sense moved up the primal star stones, and Nie Tian arrived at the second star rivers. How spectacular! Wherever his eyes landed, the star rivers were dazzling, shining brightly. The power of the stars in the second star rivers was obviously stronger than the first. Although he had only awakened the power of 20 billion stars, he could see the vastness of the entire star rivers. Nie Tian felt the surging stars around him, as if he was the ruler of the endless universe, and there was a feeling of transcendence. He could vaguely feel that obtaining the primal star stones seemed to be some kind of mission, and he was the one chosen by the great Tao of heaven and earth. However, Nie Tian did not believe in fate, and only believed in himself. Nie Tian looked at the star rivers above his head, and his eyes gradually became blurred. In his eyes, all the starlight gradually connected, and became a whole existence. Nie Tian saw the power of the stars connected from head to tail, like a long dragon, perfectly connected together. His vision went further and further, and the entire star rivers spread out in his vision. Chapter 763. Nie Tian stared at the scene in front of him, his whole person sluggish for more than 10 seconds, and it took a long time for him to react. The second layer of the heavenly river is not a totem. Nie Tian muttered to himself, the shock in his eyes still did not dissipate. He originally thought that the 9 heavenly rivers should be 9 star totems, but when the second layer of the heavenly river spread out in front of him, what appeared was not a totem, but an eye. Right. It was an eye. A huge eye spread out above the galaxy. This eye was too big, and all the stars were connected together. The power of 20 billion stars only formed the outline of the giant eye. Eye of the starry sky. Suddenly, Nie Tian shouted a name. This was the information that suddenly appeared in his mind. So this eye was called the Eye of the Starry Sky. Nye Tian stood in the eye of the starry sky, feeling the ancient shock from the vast sky. The eye of the starry sky stood majestically at the top of the galaxy, like the eye of a god, overlooking everything and seeing through everything. Nye Tian's face was filled with horror, and it took a long time for him to gradually calm down. The eye of the starry sky, since it exists in the second layer of the galaxy, then its power should be greater than the sky-shrouding totem. How can I use its power? Nye Tian muttered to himself, his eyes revealing doubt and excitement. The second layer of the galaxy was much stronger than the first layer, so the eye of the starry sky was more terrifying than the sky-shrouding totem. However, Nye Tian did not know how to use the power of the eye of the starry sky. Boom! At this moment, the domain origin array suddenly roared, and then the raw star stone shook violently. The power of the stars on the stone suddenly reacted, and suddenly lit up, incomparably bright. Nye Tian looked at the raw star stone and saw a pattern engraved on the stone. It was the eye of the starry sky. The raw star stone was divided into 9 layers, corresponding to the 9 layers of the galaxy, so it was not surprising that the eye of the starry sky appeared on the raw star stone. However, the next moment, the raw star stone suddenly released dazzling starlight, and unexpectedly rushed towards Nye Tian, overwhelming and unstoppable. Ah! Nye Tian turned pale with fright and couldn't help but cry out in alarm. However, he couldn't control his body at all. All the starlight condensed in the air, turning into rays of white starlight that flowed into Nye Tian's eyes. Nye Tian wanted to close his eyes, but he couldn't. His soul and body seemed to be controlled by an invisible force, refusing to listen to his commands. Ah! The dazzling starlight rushed over, and everything in front of Nye Tian disappeared. There was only light, endless starlight. As the light seeped into his eyes, Nye Tian felt a massive force tearing at his eyes. His eyeballs lost all sensation. In the next moment, he seemed to have entered another world. Colorful light surged around him, and he was in the center of the light, like a black hole that absorbed everything. Boundless light surged over and entered his body. His limbs, his veins, every inch of his skin, and every inch of his bones were all surging with starlight. Nye Tian felt as if his body was completely composed of light, but at the same time, it felt like flesh and blood. This feeling was very wonderful, and it gave him an indescribable sense of comfort. After an unknown amount of time, the surrounding light quickly dissipated, all of it pouring into Nye Tian's body. When all the light disappeared, Nye Tian's divine sense returned, and his eyes regained their senses. What appeared in front of him was still the raw star stone, the second layer of the star river, and nothing seemed to have changed. Nye Tian was puzzled. He blinked his eyes, and only then did he feel that his eyes had undergone a strange change. He felt that the way he saw everything had completely changed, as if everything in front of him had no secrets to speak of. Nye Tian was startled by this feeling, and his divine sense moved, coming out of the Star River domain. He jumped to his feet and suddenly opened his eyes. The moment he opened his eyes, Nye Tian clearly felt the surrounding mountains and earth tremble. And the more he concentrated, the more the mountains and earth trembled. This was a shuddering feeling, as if the mountains and earth felt fear in front of Nye Tian's eyes. Nye Tian was so surprised that he couldn't speak. Even the world was trembling in his eyes. This was too terrifying. Phew! 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 Nye Tian exhaled 3 mouthfuls of turbid air, and his expression calmed down a little. He carefully sensed his eyes, and actually saw the second layer of the Star River in his eyes. At this time, he completely understood that the starry sky eyes of the second layer of the Star River had merged with his eyes in a wonderful way. At this time, his eyes were the starry sky eyes. No wonder the mountains and earth trembled under his eyes. The starry sky eyes overlooked everything, and even heaven and earth felt fear. The shock in Nietion's heart could not subside for a long time. The raw star stones were too terrifying, beyond his imagination. This was only the second layer of the star river, but the starry sky eyes that made heaven and earth tremble had appeared. Then what kind of terrifying things would appear in the third layer, the fourth layer, all the way to the ninth layer of the star river? At this time, Nietion felt like he was in a dream. After a long time, Nietion finally calmed down. He began to try to restrain the terrifying aura in his eyes, and after several practices, he could freely shrink and retract his eyes. Nietion felt that his eyes had made a qualitative leap in all aspects, including vision, insight, reaction, and so on. He looked into the distance, and could clearly see things tens of kilometers away. With his spiritual force, it was effortless to perceive everything within 5 kilometers, but if it was beyond 5 kilometers, he would need to concentrate, and 10 kilometers away, he would not be able to perceive anything. But now, he did not use spiritual force, and only relied on his eyes. He could see everything tens of kilometers away. Moreover, he could ignore obstacles. Nietion stretched out his palm, placed it in front of him, and actually saw the blood vessels in his palm. Gulp! Nietion could not help but gulp and murmured, "The ability of the starry sky eyes is too abnormal. In this way, no one has any secrets in front of me. Master, your eyes are too scary." Suddenly, the corpse demon lord seemed to notice something, and exclaimed, "Hee, if used for peeping, it is simply invincible." The corpse demon lord and Nietion had signed a soul blood contract, and he could perceive some of Nietion's abilities in reverse. Nietion was speechless, using the starry sky eyes to peep. This was too much of a waste. If the raw star stones had a mind of their own, they would probably go crazy with anger after hearing the corpse demon lord's words. "Awoo!" At this time, a bird suddenly sounded in the sky, piercing the silence of the night sky. "Huh!" Nietion suddenly raised his head, and his pupils shrank slightly. A sharp spiritual force whistled like lightning, piercing the flying bird in the sky. Chapter 764. Nietion looked at the flying bird on the ground, his mouth opened wide, and he was stunned for a long time. He just inadvertently used his gaze to lock onto the flying bird and actually killed it directly. Mental attack. These words appeared in Nietion's mind, and he had a stunned look. It's actually a mental attack. The flying bird was killed by Nietion just now, not because Nietion's eyes of the starry sky released ocular power, but because he released mental power. It was the mental attack that directly frightened the flying bird's divine soul, causing it to lose control of its body and fall to the ground dead. Nietion really did not expect that the eyes of the starry sky could actually release a mental attack. He had once come into contact with the Alchemist Association's Pilheart Soulstone, and he himself was also an alchemist, so he naturally knew the horror of mental attacks. Imagine two martial artists of comparable strength. If one of them suffered a blow to the divine soul at a critical moment and suddenly became absent-minded, it was absolutely a fatal blow, enough to determine life and death. "Hoo!" Nietion let out a long breath of turbid air and muttered, "The power of the eyes of the starry sky is too terrifying. I have to use it cautiously in the future." Using the eyes of the starry sky just now made his spirit feel a little tired too. This is a carrier pigeon. At this time, Nietion suddenly saw that the flying bird on the ground was actually a carrier pigeon. Nietion raised his finger and got a piece of paper in his hand. Opening it, a line of words was written on it, "Wind and Cloud Mantra, 2 months later, Wind and Cloud Forbidden Land." And Nietion frowned slightly, not understanding what this wind and cloud mantra meant. He did not think too much either. The most crucial thing now was nothing else but to familiarize himself with the eyes of the starry sky's ability as soon as possible. In the following time, Nietion practiced controlling the eyes of the starry sky in the Chaos original coffin. The eyes of the starry sky was too terrifying. If it lost control at a critical moment, it would hurt others and hurt oneself. After several hours, the horizon revealed a fish belly white, and the sun rose from the east. Nie Tian stood up, but his spirit was somewhat dispirited. A night of bitter cultivation, he was practicing the eyes of the starry sky. The current hymn could at least guarantee that there would not be an incident of mistakenly killing a flying bird like before. The eyes of the starry sky's mental attack was too terrifying. Nie Tian named it as Absolute Shudder. This name was very domineering, and it didn't really live up to its name. Nie Tian discovered that the spiritual force attack of the eye of the starry sky was closely linked to the power of the stars in the second layer of the galaxy, and the power of the attack was not very strong yet. If the opponent was as determined as Nie Tian, they could basically ignore this level of mental attack. However, Nie Tian believed that as the power of the stars continued to awaken, the absolute tremor would become more and more terrifying. After getting up, Nie Tian did not delay any further and directly entered Mystic Moon City. Not long after, his figure appeared in the Blue Dragon Academy. At this moment, the sky had just turned bright. Many people in the Tsang Dragon College had already woken up to cultivate and train. Heaven rewards the diligent. This saying was true. No matter how talented you are, if you can't persevere in your cultivation, you are destined to not have great achievements. After a while, a figure appeared in Nie Tian's sight. It was Xian Miao. At this time, Xian Miao had changed into a purple dress, with a pink ribbon around her waist, which set off the girl's graceful body vividly. Nie Tian glanced around, but saw a graceful and peerless body. Even if he deliberately restrained the ability of the eyes of the starry sky, it could still see through other people's clothes. Nie Tian still needed more practice to be able to completely control the eyes of the starry sky and achieve true contraction and contraction freely. Inadvertently catching a glimpse of the girl's body, Nie Tian turned slightly red, and his eyes moved away in a panic. "Brother Nie Tian, you've been waiting for a long time, right?" Xian Miao walked over with light footsteps and greeted Nie Tian excitedly. She was just worried that Nie Tian would not appear. Who knew that the latter was already waiting for her? "I just arrived," Nie Tian replied, not daring to look at Xian Miao. "Brother Nie Tian, what's wrong with you? Your face is so red." Xian Miao walked to Nie Tian's side, and could not help but worry when she saw the latter's red face. "I'm fine." Nie Tian waved his hand and said hurriedly, "Let's go. Grandmaster Huijia is still waiting for us." "Okay." Xian Miao nodded obediently, and followed behind Nie Tian, but still whispered, "Brother Nie Tian won't be sick, right?" Nie Tian shook his head with a bitter smile, and the corpse demon king's wretched laughter could be heard from the chaotic original coffin. Soon, the two arrived at the Craftsman's Guild. Nie Tian looked at the cauldron-shaped building in front of him, and smiled softly. "The Craftsman's Guild is no worse than the Alchemist's Guild." Xian Miao nodded her little head, but there was a look of worry on her face, and she said, "Will Grandmaster Huijia really accept me as a disciple?" "Lass, don't worry. That old fellow will definitely not go back on his word." Nie Tian smiled faintly and walked up confidently. Huijia did not look very reliable, but he did things with propriety. There were already people waiting for Nie Tian and Xian Miao in the Craftsman's Guild. The two were led by a deacon to the inner hall of the guild. "Brat Nie, you're here." As soon as they arrived at the inner hall, Huijia's figure appeared. It seemed that he was really waiting for Nie Tian and Xian Miao. Behind Huijia stood a man in white. It was Bai Luo, who had appeared at the Yu family's auction previously. Nie Tian looked at Bai Luo and was quite surprised. The latter was actually a third level of the heaven-human realm martial artist. It seemed that Bai Luo was not only Huijia's disciple, but also his guard. "Old man Hua, when will the apprenticeship ceremony begin?" Nie Tian did not stand on ceremony with Huijia, and asked directly. When Bai Luo heard how Nie Tian addressed Huijia, he frowned, and seemed to be a little unhappy. Nie Tian ignored him, and pretended not to see. Huijia's temper was not bad, and he was not a rigid and harsh person. He was quite similar to Gu Yi. Don't be anxious, the person I invited has not arrived yet. Huijia smiled and said to Bai Luo, who was beside him, Bai Luo, bring the little girl to familiarize herself with the guild. In the future, she will be your junior sister. Junior sister? Bai Luo was stunned and looked at Xian Miao. He then smiled and said, Little junior sister, please follow me. Bai Luo originally thought that today's apprenticeship ceremony was prepared for Nie Tian. He did not expect it to be prepared for Xian Miao. Brat, let's talk. After Bai Luo and Xian Miao left, Huijia pushed open the door and walked in. Nie Tian followed. Huijia signaled for Nie Tian to sit down, and his expression became slightly ugly. He picked up a cup of tea and took a sip. He shook his head and sighed, saying, I have already helped you destroy the snowstorm battle armor. Tell me honestly, what did you do to Prince Xianqi? It's good that I destroyed it. Nie Tian smiled faintly and teased him. Old man Hua, I didn't expect you to be so meticulous. Don't change the topic. Huijia was not that easy to brush off. He said in a deep voice, What did you do to Prince Xianqi? After speaking, Huijia drank a big mouthful of tea. I killed him. Nie Tian's lips curled into a helpless smile, and he said in a deep voice. Chapter 765. Upon hearing that Nie Tian had killed Prince Xianqi, Fire Armor spat out a mouthful of water before he could even swallow it. He stared at Nie Tian with disbelief written all over his face. Nie Tian, you really killed Prince Xianqi? Huijia was stunned for a few seconds. He gulped, still in disbelief. So what? What's there to be surprised about? Nie Tian said with a faint smile. He didn't seem to take this matter to heart at all. So what? Huijia almost shouted out loud, but then he realized that he had lost his composure. He lowered his voice and frowned, saying, Little brat Nie, you make it sound easy. Although Mysterious Fantasy isn't a good person, he is still a member of the Black Moon Imperial family. Furthermore, he is Crown Prince Xian Zhao's brother. If you kill him, Xian Zhao will never forgive you. Even if Xianqi's position among the princes wasn't high, he was still a prince. How could he be killed so easily? Huijia was speechless at Nie Tian's attitude. He killed a prince and acted like nothing happened. This brat's brain was either caught in a door or kicked by a donkey. With a faint smile, Nie Tian picked up the teacup and took a sip. Old man Hua, as long as you and I don't tell anyone, who will know? Up until now, only Nie Tian, Xian Miao Miao, and Huijia knew about Xianqi's death. Huijia was speechless. Little brat, do you think the Black Moon Imperial family is stupid? Xianqi's death can't be covered up. Not to mention what happened at the Yu family auction house yesterday. With Crown Prince Xian Zhao's shrewdness, he will definitely blame Xianqi's death on you. You can't deny it. Not denying it is not bad. Nie Tian laughed and said, Xian Zhao doesn't have any evidence anyway, so he can't kill me directly. Even if he comes to kill me, there will be people who won't agree. Who won't agree? Who in the Black Moon Empire dares to go against Xian Zhao? Huijia was stunned for a moment before he asked, You're talking about Xian Qiu? In the entire Xianyu Empire, there was only one person who dared to openly oppose Xian Zhao, Xian Qiu. The two were brothers in name, but in reality, they were mortal enemies. Looking at Huijia's reaction, Nie Tian knew that Huijia didn't know what had happened at Song Dragon Academy yesterday. Nie Tian laughed and said, Old Hua, I have an appointment with Xian Qiu at the Craftsman's Guild. You don't mind, do you? Fire Armor was speechless. His expression was clearly saying, Does it matter if I mind? At this time, Fire Armor sighed and took a sip of tea. Suddenly, he thought of something and asked, Did that Dao Guangxing cause trouble for you last night? Seeing that Nie Tian was fine, Huijia felt that Dao Guangxing probably hadn't gone to look for Nie Tian. I killed him. Nie Tian didn't beat around the bush this time and said directly. What? Hua Jia almost jumped up. His old eyes were wide open. If his eye sockets were a little bigger, his eyeballs would have popped out. Old Hua, you are also considered a big shot. Don't be so jumpy all the time. It doesn't suit your status. Nie Tian smiled lightly and said with his lips curled. This time, Hua Jia was really speechless. His old face was stiff and it took him a while to recover. Nie Tian was really a hornet's nest. Not only did he kill Xian Qi, he also killed Dao Guangxing. If Xian Xiao knew the truth, he would definitely want to tear Nie Tian into pieces. His own brother and sworn brother had both died in the hands of Nie Tian. It would be strange if Xian Xiao wasn't angry. Suddenly, Hua Jia felt that taking Nie Tian as a disciple might not be a good thing. This kid had just arrived at Xianyu City, and he had already started killing people crazily. Moreover, the people he killed were all big shot. Who knew if one day Nie Tian would even dare to kill the emperor of Xianyu City? That would be terrible. But Nie Tian's talent was really too good. Hua Jia really couldn't bear to part with such a monstrous genius. Old Hua, I have something to discuss with you. Just as Hua Jia's thoughts were running wild, Nie Tian suddenly chuckled and looked at Hua Jia with a malicious expression. Hua Jia's hair stood on end from Nie Tian's stare. Goosebumps rose all over his body. He said in a low voice, "Stinking brat, what are you up to this time?" Hua Jia really couldn't say it out loud. He originally thought that he had hooked up a good disciple with the mysterious sky iron. But after today, he felt that he had unknowingly boarded Nie Tian's pirate ship. Why are you so nervous? Nie Tian chuckled and said, Master Hua, I want to see the pill cauldron you bought yesterday. Is that okay? You're interested in that pill cauldron? Hua Jia was startled, but he immediately heaved a sigh of relief. This time, Nie Tian was finally serious. Nie Tian was an alchemist, so it wasn't strange for him to be interested in a pill cauldron. Hua Jia didn't decline. He directly took out a pill cauldron from his interspatial ring. It was the three-legged profound cauldron. When the three-legged profound cauldron appeared, Nie Tian's eyes lit up. Observing the three-legged profound cauldron at such a close distance, Nie Tian felt an ancient and vast aura. Carefully sensing the profound cauldron, Nie Tian felt a strong true intent of tools and alchemy. The two true intents were endless and vast, giving people a feeling that they couldn't be touched. Nie Tian's consciousness moved in an attempt to sense the aura within the profound cauldron, but he was repelled by a strong force. His body trembled, and he actually took a few steps back, almost falling. At this moment, his eyes surged with a flash of starlight. There was a strong force hidden within the three-legged profound cauldron. It was extremely strange, and even with Nie Tian's strong mental strength, his soul was almost injured. Hua Jia snickered and said, Kid, there's a seal in this profound cauldron that seals the two true intents. This old man was almost injured by this seal yesterday. Seal? Nie Tian frowned slightly. His expression suddenly changed, and he said in shock, A mental seal. To be able to seal the powerful true intent of tools and alchemy, it had to be a mental seal. Ordinary seals were formed with yuanli, but a mental seal was formed with mental strength. Ordinary sealers couldn't undo a mental seal. Only people who were proficient in mental attacks could break the seal. Yes. Hua Jia nodded slightly and laughed bitterly. I can't undo the mental seal. This pill cauldron can be considered a waste. It can only be used as a decoration. Just as Hua Jia finished speaking, Nie Tian suddenly raised his head. His eyes narrowed slightly, and suddenly, a vast mental strength surged out. An invisible mental deterrent enveloped Hua Jia. The sudden mental oppression caught Hua Jia off guard, and he cried out in shock. Nie Tian quickly retracted his eyes, and the absolute trembling stopped. This is... Hua Jia was still in shock, and he stared at Nie Tian in astonishment. After a long time, He finally said 4 words, "Mental attack." In that instant, he felt his soul tremble, and his mind was lost. Despair actually grew in his heart. Fortunately, his mental strength was high enough. He only lost his mind for a moment, but that feeling was unforgettable. Chapter 766. Nie Tian narrowed his eyes. His mind was also slightly exhausted. In order to shock Huijia, he had mobilized all the power of the stars in the eye of starry sky. His mind was inevitably exhausted. Mind power was different from elemental energy. It was easy to exhaust it, and it would take a long time to recover. Elder Hua, I have a suggestion. I don't know if you're willing to accept it. Nie Tian nodded solemnly. Speak. Huijia's eyes flickered. Just now, Nie Tian had shown his mind power attack in front of him. It was obviously not to show off. He must have some idea. Nie Tian paused and said, I think I can break the mind power seal in the cauldron, but it will take time. I want to take the cauldron. Once the mind power seal is broken, the tools path and alchemy path will all belong to you. I want this cauldron. Nie Tian did not care about the tools path and alchemy path. He only wanted the 3-legged profound cauldron. He could feel that there must be a huge secret hidden in the 3-legged profound cauldron. Just the totems and runes outside the cauldron made Nie Tian excited. Huijia saw Nie Tian's solemn face and knew that the latter was not joking. He did not hesitate and nodded in agreement. He was not a fool. Of course, he could see that Nie Tian had a special liking for the cauldron. He must know what was hidden in the cauldron. However, it was useless for him to leave the cauldron. It could only be used as a decoration. It was better to let Nie Tian take it. As long as he could obtain the intent in the cauldron, the 1 million upper-grade essence crystals would be worth it. He believed that Nie Tian was not the kind of person who would go back on his word. Thank you. Nie Tian breathed a sigh of relief. He was really worried that Huijia would not agree. Nie Tian did not stand on ceremony and kept the cauldron. At this moment, Huijia frowned. He suddenly felt that since Nie Tian knew mind power attacks, he might really be able to create a miracle and greatly increase the mysterious mind power. If that was the case, wouldn't his plan to take Nie Tian as his disciple be ruined? Huijia shook his head slightly and smiled bitterly in his heart. Nie Tian, if you can really help that girl raise her psychic power to level 8 within a month, this old man will be convinced by you. Subsequently, the two of them continued to discuss some matters. Nie Tian inquired about the various forces in the Black Moon Empire and had a rough idea of what was going on. After a while, Bai Luo and Xian Miao Miao appeared again. Teacher, the people from the 4 great clans have arrived. Can we start the ceremony of acknowledging a teacher? Bai Luo bowed slightly and said respectfully. Good. Fire Armor nodded with a smile. Take the little girl to change her clothes. I'll be right there. Yes, Bai Luo agreed and left with Xian Miao Miao again. People from the 4 families. Nie Tian chuckled and said, Elder Hua is indeed flawless. He had asked Huijia to hold the ceremony for Xian Miao Miao, but he did not expect Huijia to invite the people from the 4 families. This was out of Nie Tian's expectation. However, this was a good thing. Now, everyone in the Black Moon City would know that Xian Miao Miao was Huijia's disciple. This way, no one would dare to do anything to Xian Miao Miao and the Xian family fortress. Huijia prepared for a while and changed into a craftsman's robe. His expression also became more solemn. The two of them left the room and went to the guild hall. At this moment, the guild hall was filled with people. Not only did Huijia invite the people from the 4 families, but he also invited other influential forces in the Black Moon City. Master Huijia is accepting a new disciple. I wonder which young genius is so lucky to be favored by Master Huijia. Needless to say, it must be a craftsman genius. If I'm not mistaken, it must be a disciple of the 4 families. I've never heard of a craftsman genius appearing in the 4 families recently. Don't worry, we'll find out soon. The crowd discussed spiritedly, waiting for Huijia to appear. In the center of the crowd stood 4 people. Nie Tian recognized 3 of them: Qi Yi, Yun Haichao, and Yu Jiao. The last person was a middle-aged man, standing close to Yun Haichao. These 4 people were sent by the 4 families of Qi, Lu, Yun, and Yu. The middle-aged man was from the Lu family, Lu Fiyuan. It was rare to see people from the 4 families gathered at the same time. They're here. At this time, Huijia and Nie Tian's figures appeared, immediately attracting everyone's attention. The people from the 4 families looked over and saw the face standing behind Huijia. 3 of them let out a surprised voice at the same time. Qi Yi, Yun Haichao, and Yu Jiao did not expect Nie Tian to appear at this kind of occasion. The 3 of them had the same question in their minds: Master Huijia's new disciple is Nie Tian? From the looks of it, it seemed that Nie Tian was Huijia's new disciple. Yun Haichao's heart sank, and his expression became extremely ugly. He did not expect that Nie Tian would be related to Huijia. Xian Qiu protecting Nie Tian was already troublesome enough. Adding Huijia to the mix, there was basically no hope of avenging Yun Zong and Yun Yu. Qi Yi's eyes were also very complicated. He did not know why Prince Xian Qiu would look for Nie Tian, but if Nie Tian became Huijia's disciple, everything would be different. Only Yu Jiao was stunned at first, but then she revealed a pleasantly surprised expression. She was very happy for Nie Tian. At this time, Huijia and Nie Tian walked over. Huijia's gaze swept across the crowd and he smiled kindly. Thank you for coming, everyone. I can't thank you enough. The people from the 4 families walked up and exchanged greetings. Yu Jiao deliberately looked at Nie Tian a few more times, but the latter only avoided her, which made her a little happy. She did not know that Nie Tian did not dare to look at her, because if he did, he would see her whole face. I must practice my starry eye more. I won't dare to look at women in the future, Nie Tian muttered in his heart. It was fine if he looked at men, but it was not suitable for women, and Nie Tian did not want to take advantage of them. Young Master Nie Tian, congratulations on becoming Grandmaster Huijia's disciple. Yu Jiao took a step forward, and her full chest trembled, causing Nie Tian's face to turn red. Nie Tian hurriedly shifted his attention, and only looked at Yu Jiao's face. He said, Miss Yu, you misunderstand. I am not the one who wants to become an apprentice, but a friend of mine. Staring at her face, Nie Tian felt much better. You are not the one who wants to become an apprentice? Yu Jiao was slightly stunned. She immediately realized that she had overreacted, and she pursed her lips into a smile. When Qi Yi and Yun Haichao, who were at the side, heard Nie Tian's words, their faces relaxed. After a while, Bai Luo appeared with a mysterious aura. Huijia briefly introduced Bai Luo, and the apprenticeship ceremony was ready to begin. It's so lively. It seems that I have come at a bad time. At this time, a hearty laughter rang out. As the laughter faded, an imposing figure appeared. Chapter 767. Nie Tian heard a familiar voice and looked over. It was none other than the 19th prince of Xian Yu Empire, Xian Qiu. This guy really came at the right time. Nie Tian smiled bitterly. Xian Qiu seemed to have planned this. He came just when Xian Miaomiao was about to become his disciple. What a disappointment! Xian Qiu walked over and the crowd automatically made way for him. Huijia looked at Xian Qiu and was startled. Then, he remembered that Xian Qiu was here for Nie Tian. Grandmaster Huijia, congratulations. You've accepted another disciple. Xian Qiu walked over and congratulated Huijia. Then, he looked at Xian Miaomiao and said with a kind face, I'm very happy that Grandmaster Huijia likes my sister. Sister? The crowd's eyes narrowed and their hearts trembled. Huijia's new disciple was a member of the royal family and Xian Qiu's sister? However, everyone here was a reputable figure in Xian Yu City. They had never seen Princess Xian Miaomiao before. Upon hearing Xian Qiu's way of addressing her, Nie Tian couldn't help but sneer inwardly. Xian Qiu was really shameless. When Xian Miao Miao was penniless, he didn't call her sister. However, this guy couldn't be wrong. After all, Xian Miao Miao was a member of the royal family, and they shared the same blood. Xian Miao Miao was embarrassed and didn't know what to say. She just nodded. Huijia glanced at Xian Miao Miao and seemed a little unhappy. Then, he laughed and said, 19th Highness, it is a joyous occasion for your younger sister to become my disciple. As her elder brother, shouldn't you express your gratitude? Xian Qiu was shameless and Huijia wasn't easy to deal with. He didn't call her sister for nothing. At least, he had to make Xian Qiu pay. Since Xian Qiu called her sister in front of so many people, of course, he couldn't take out something shabby. Xian Qiu's eyes twitched and he laughed dryly. Grandmaster Huijia is right. In front of so many people, Xian Qiu, as her brother, had to pay a lot. If he casually took out something to deal with it, he would lose a lot of face. The ring on Xian Qiu's hand flashed, and a spirit pill appeared in his palm. The moment the spirit pill appeared, the fragrance of the pill filled the air, and the smell of the pill assailed the nostrils. A grade 8 spirit pill. Nie Tian's eyes narrowed. He immediately sensed that the pill in Xian Qiu's hand was indeed a grade 8 spirit pill. An 8th grade spirit pill wasn't low in quality and could be said to be priceless. Xian Qiu raised the spirit pill in his hand and felt his heart wrench in pain. However, he still wore a smile on his face and said, "This is an 8 Revolutions Foundation pill. It's a birthday gift from Master Jia Guang to this king. A Heaven Evolution Realm warrior can raise their cultivation by at least 3 levels if they consume it. I will now give it to Princess Miao Miao." After that, Xian Qiu sent the 8 Revolutions Foundation pill to Xian Miao Miao. A level 8 spirit pill personally refined by Grandmaster Jia Guang. This gift is so valuable. The eyes of the crowd burned with passion, and they couldn't help but exclaim. Jia Guang, the president of the Alchemist Guild, had the same status as Huijia in the Black Moon Empire. "Your Highness, this gift is too precious. I can't accept it." Xian Miao Miao was shocked and waved her hands. She never dreamed that one day, Prince Xian Qiu would give her such a precious gift. "Girl, take it." Before Xian Qiu could speak, Huijia said directly, "You can't refuse the 19th Highness's gift." Xian Miao Miao's little face stiffened. Seeing Huijia's serious face, she had no choice but to take the spirit pill. "That's right." Huijia chuckled and said, "I thank the 19th Highness on behalf of the girl. Let's continue with the apprenticeship ceremony." Huijia waved his hand and gestured for the ceremony to continue. "Wait." At this moment, a domineering voice was heard. It was powerful and forceful, with a strong oppressive aura. The eyes of the crowd trembled violently. Who was this person? How dare he be so arrogant on such an occasion? Was he tired of living? Someone actually came to mess up Huijia's apprenticeship ceremony. This person was simply courting death. Everyone looked towards the source of the voice. A burly and domineering figure appeared and stepped into the air. 2 deep footprints were left on the ground, and the surrounding space shook. With the appearance of this person, an enormous pressure spread out from the void, shaking everyone's hearts. The person walked through the air step by step, leaving a row of deep footprints on the ground. The enormous pressure also became more intense. The crowd felt that it was difficult to breathe. Their chests were oppressed, and their breathing became heavy and rapid. Many people's faces were slightly flushed. Nie Tian looked at the figure in the air, and also felt a strong pressure. However, he was strong enough and did not pose any threat. The person who came seemed to be around 30 years old. His facial features were handsome and well-defined, making him look resolute and domineering. A layer of faintly discernible mystic sand surged around him, releasing a chilling aura. It was very strange. At this moment, many people saw the face of the person who came. Their expressions immediately stiffened, and unconcealable fear appeared on their faces. When Xian Qiu saw the person in the air, the corner of his eyes twitched violently. His expression was twisted, making him look somewhat ferocious. However, he hid it well. The gloominess on his face disappeared in a flash and was replaced by respect. He bowed slightly and said in a clear voice, "Royal brother, long time no see. I didn't expect you to come here and join in the fun." "Royal brother?" Hearing how Xian Qiu addressed the person, Nie Tian was slightly stunned. He was quite surprised. Could he be Crown Prince Xian Shao? There was only one person in the entire Black Moon Empire who dared to be so arrogant in front of Huijia and the others, and that was Crown Prince Xian Shao. Nie Tian immediately confirmed that the person who came was definitely Crown Prince Xian Shao. This guy was very famous. He was one of the 9 demons of the Sumi world, the Crown Prince of the Black Moon Empire. He was overbearing, fierce, and cruel. Nie Tian did not expect that Crown Prince Xian Shao would also appear. Crown Prince Xian Shao and Prince Xian Qiu, the 2 most powerful princes of the Black Moon Empire, met. This was going to be interesting. Of these 2 people, one was overbearing and the other was gloomy. Both were not good people. "Your Royal Highness, what brings you here?" Huijia looked at the figure in the air and laughed strangely. He did not hide his displeasure at all. Others might be afraid of Xian Shao, but he was not. Xian Shao controlled his whole body's pressure perfectly, and it disappeared in front of Huijia. No matter how arrogant he would definitely not dare to provoke Huijia. Crown Prince Xian Shao had been in seclusion for 2 years. When he came out this time, his appearance had changed a little, so many people did not recognize him at first. After Huijia confirmed Xian Zhao's identity, the crowd could not help but retreat, fear in their eyes. Xian Shao was too overbearing, and no one dared to provoke him. "Grandmaster Huijia, I have some matters to attend to, so I came uninvited." Xian Zhao's figure landed, and his aura was slightly restrained. There was also some respect in his tone. He was already giving Huijia a lot of face by doing this. Huijia frowned slightly and his heart sank. Is this guy here for Nie Tian? Chapter 768. Nie Tian looked at Xian Shao and suddenly remembered that Huijia had said that Xian Shao was the top genius of the Xianwei princes and had a very powerful bloodline seal in him. Before Xian Miaomiao appeared, he was the top genius of the royal family. It was not surprising that he could tell that Xian Miaomiao was from the royal family. Yes. Xian Miaomiao nodded lightly, not daring to look at Xian Shao. Xian Shao was silent for a while before a stiff smile appeared on his lips. "Since you're a member of the royal family, you're my sister. Since you are Master Huijia's disciple, I must show my gratitude." Upon hearing Xian Zhao's words, Nie Tian immediately realized that Yun Haichao must have told him what had happened. Since Xian Qiu had expressed his gratitude, Xian Shao would not be willing to be left behind. On the surface, they seemed to care about Xian Miaomiao, but they were actually trying to win over Huijia and gain face in front of the crowd. The crowd's eyes trembled, and their eyes became blazing. Xian Qiu had just taken out an 8th-grade elixir pill. Xian Zhao's gift couldn't be worse. Xian Miaomiao kept her head down, not daring to speak. Huijia smiled and waited for Xian Shao to take out the gift. Since someone was cutting their own flesh, he would not stop them. Xian Qiu watched from the side with an embarrassed expression. Since Xian Shao appeared, he had only glanced at him. He didn't even say a word to him, which made him very uncomfortable. Xian Shao took out a scroll and handed it to Xian Miaomiao. "Little sister, I came in a hurry and don't have anything else with me except this 7th-grade spiritual formation scroll. It is a spirit-gathering formation made by Master Li Jin himself. Cultivating inside the formation is dozens of times faster than outside. I'll give it to you today." A 7th-grade spirit-gathering formation, the crowd exclaimed. Li Jin was the president of the Spirit Formation Guild. His status in the Xianwei Empire was no lower than Huijia and Jia Guang. A 7th grade spirit gathering formation was no less valuable than an 8th grade elixir pill. Xian Xiao and Xian Qiu had really gone all out for this. Your Highness, Xian Miao Miao was very nervous. She had never seen such a scene before. Her heart was pounding wildly. However, before she could finish speaking, Huojia chuckled and took the scroll. It's a good gift. I'll hold it for the little girl. Thank you, Your Highness. Nie Tian was also stunned as he watched from the side. Xian Miao Miao was really lucky this time. Rank 8 spirit pills, rank 7 spirit arrays, her future path of cultivation would be much easier. Xian Xiao, his younger brother Xian Qi had died because of Xian Miao Miao. She wondered what his reaction would be if he knew this. Little girl, both of your brothers have expressed their intentions. Let's continue with the ceremony. Fire Armor chuckled and waved his hand at Brock, indicating that the ceremony should continue. Xian Xiao didn't stop them this time. He just watched from the side. When his gaze landed on Nie Tian, his eyes revealed an undisguised murderous intent. Soon, the apprenticeship ceremony ended, and Xian Miao Miao officially became Fire Armor's disciple. Master Fire Armor, my sister's apprenticeship ceremony is over. I have some personal matters to deal with. Seeing that the apprenticeship ceremony was over, Xian Xiao didn't wait any longer. He told Fire Armor and strode forward. His cold eyes locked onto Nie Tian. With a murderous intent, he said coldly, "Your name is Nie Tian?" Seeing this, Fire Armor's expression suddenly changed. He had been worried that Xian Zhao's purpose for coming here was not simple. Now, it seemed that Xian Xiao was indeed here for Nie Tian. But logically speaking, Xian Qi and Dao Guangxing both died yesterday. The matter shouldn't have been exposed so quickly. Seeing that Xian Xiao had come to Nie Tian, Xian Qiu's expression also changed, and he frowned. What do you want? Nie Tian looked straight at Xian Xiao, his expression as calm as usual. Xian Xiao was overbearing, but Nie Tian wasn't afraid of him. Nie Tian could tell that Xian Xiao was in the 2nd tier of the sky human realm. He was very powerful, 1 tier higher than him. No wonder he was one of the 9 demons. Xian Xiao was ranked 2nd among the 9 demons, 2nd only to Qianlong Yingzheng. He was far stronger than Xian Qiu, who was ranked 9th. However, Xian Qiu was much younger than Xian Xiao, so it was hard to say who was more talented. Seeing Nie Tian's calm expression, Xian Xiao couldn't help but be stunned. There weren't many people who could remain calm in front of him, especially at Nie Tian's age. Are you the one who attacked the Yun clan? Xian Xiao said coldly. His entire body released a domineering pressure that enveloped Nie Tian. Nie Tian's body trembled slightly. The Sword of the Divine Wheel, which was formed by the fusion of the Divine Wheel space and the Sword Warp and Weft, was activated. Boom! There was a loud noise in the air. The two forces collided. Nie Tian had actually broken through Xian Zhao's pressure. Although Xian Xiao was powerful, it wasn't possible for him to make Nie Tian lower his head with just his calm pressure. So what if I am? The corner of Nie Tian's mouth twitched, but his expression remained calm. It turned out that Xian Xiao was here because of Yun Yu and Yun Zong. It seemed that he still didn't know about Xian Qi and Dao Guangxing. You attacked the Yun clan? On the other side, Huojia was stunned. He didn't understand. Could it be that other than killing Xian Qi and Dao Guangxing, Nie Tian had done something else? Bai Luo whispered anxiously in Huojia's ear. The latter's expression was as ugly as it could be. Nie Tian was really like a hornet's nest, stinging people everywhere. Yes, you have to die. Xian Zhao's expression slowly turned cold as he said each word clearly. He wouldn't ask any questions. As long as Nie Tian attacked the Yun clan, no matter what the process was, Nie Tian had to die. This was Xian Zhao's rule. It was unreasonable and overbearing. Brother Nie Tian attacked the Yun clan. The Yun clan was in the wrong first. It's not appropriate for you to kill him directly. At this moment, Xian Qiu was the first to speak. His voice was cold and no longer respectful. I don't care about right or wrong. I only care about the result, Xian Xiao replied coldly without even looking at Xianqiu. He didn't care about right or wrong. He only cared about the result. When the crowd heard Xian Zhao's words, their hearts trembled violently. Xian Xiao was too overbearing and unreasonable. He didn't even give Xianqiu any face. Many people already knew about what had happened in the Blue Dragon Institute. At this moment, the crowd looked at Nie Tian. They all thought that he was dead meat. How could he survive after being targeted by Crown Prince Xian Xiao? Your Highness, Nie Tian is Ai's friend. I apologize on his behalf for what happened to the Yun clan. I will owe your Highness a favor and let this matter rest. How about that? Huojia suddenly stepped forward and said calmly. The crowd turned to look at Huojia. They didn't expect him to take responsibility for everything on behalf of Nie Tian. Huojia's words clearly meant that he wanted to take responsibility for what happened to the Yun clan. What was his relationship with Nie Tian then? Huh! Xian Xiao was also stunned. His gloomy gaze swept across Huojia, and his eyes suddenly flickered. After a pause, Xian Xiao said, Grandmaster Huojia, since you've spoken, it's not appropriate for me to reject you. How about this? I'll only make one move. After that, regardless of whether Nie Tian lives or dies, I won't pursue the matter regarding the Yun clan. Chapter 769. Only one move. The crowd trembled violently when they heard Crown Prince Xian Zhao's words. Only now did they understand that Xian Zhao's ferocity was indeed well-deserved. Who was Xian Xiao? The second of the 9 demons in the Meru world. He was one of the 19 most talented people in the entire Meru world. And what about Nie Tian? Before killing Yun Yu and Yun Zong, he was a nobody. Moreover, Nie Tian was too young. He was not even 20 years old. Crown Prince Xian Xiao and Nie Tian were not on the same level at all. Huojia's expression stiffened slightly when he heard Xian Zhao's reply. He immediately said, Crown Prince, Your Highness, you really give this old man face. Only one move. What a nice way of putting it. Your Highness is at the 2nd level of Heaven Human, while Nie Tian is only at the 2nd level of Heaven Evolution. The two of you are an entire major realm apart. Given the Crown Prince's strength, even a 1st-level Heaven Human martial artist would not be able to withstand an all-out move, much less a 2nd-level Heaven Evolution martial artist. Huojia's expression was extremely ugly when he finished speaking. He did not expect Xian Xiao to be arrogant to this extent. He did not even give him face. He had personally taken care of the Yun family's matter for Nie Tian, but Xian Xiao still refused to give up. This was simply a slap to his old face. The crowd looked at Xian Xiao strangely. The latter was clearly bent on taking Nie Tian's life. Royal brother, you are really magnanimous. I admire you. Xianqiu glanced at Xian Xiao and said sarcastically. Xian Xiao completely ignored Xianqiu's mockery. He stared fixedly at Nie Tian, releasing a sharp murderous intent. For some reason, Xian Xiao had a vague feeling that if he did not kill Nie Tian today, the latter would definitely become a formidable opponent in the future. Xian Xiao sensed an extremely strange power hidden in Nie Tian's body. This power even made him feel inexplicable fear. At this time, the crowd's gazes gradually shifted to Nie Tian to see how he would respond. Nie Tian's expression was calm as usual. There was no ripple in his eyes. It was as though he did not take Xian Xiao seriously at all. One move? Suddenly, Nie Tian laughed and said, Since your Highness is in such a good mood, how can I be a wet blanket? I'll play with you. His voice was calm, but it was filled with extreme mockery. Nie Tian's words made everyone's eyes narrow. They all sucked in a breath of cold air, and their backs were covered in cold sweat. Nie Tian had actually agreed to take on Xian Zhao's attack, and in such a calm manner. This was something that no one had expected. Xian Zhao's strength was a whole realm higher than his. He could not even take half a move, much less one. Since Huojia had stepped forward, he would definitely fight to the end. No matter how arrogant Xian Xiao was, he would not dare to fall out with Huojia. If Nie Tian didn't say anything, it wouldn't be a problem for him to stay alive. In everyone's opinion, Nie Tian was courting death by agreeing to Xian Zhao's challenge. Nie Tian! Brother Nie Tian! Huojia and Xian Miaomiao exclaimed at the same time when they heard Nie Tian agree. Don't worry. I know what I'm doing. Nie Tian smiled, his expression indifferent. It might be too much for him to fight to the death with Xian Xiao now, but Nie Tian was 100% confident that he could only take on one move from the other party. He even wanted to kill Xian Xiao in one move. Know what I'm doing? The crowd was stunned, but their eyes were full of contempt. How could a second-level heavenly evolution warrior take on a second-level heaven human warrior's move? Know what he was doing? Nie Tian did not care about the crowd's reaction. He took a step forward and stared at Xian Xiao with a burning gaze. Huojia's expression was extremely ugly. There was no turning back now. He could only hope for a miracle. In any case, with his experience, he had never seen a second-level heavenly evolution warrior take on a second-level heaven-human warrior's move. A heaven-human realm warrior's heaven-human realm was too terrifying. It was not something a heaven evolution warrior could withstand. Nie Tian and Xian Xiao arrived at the huge square outside the guild hall. Nie Tian, you're asking for it. You can't blame me for it. The corners of Xian Zhao's mouth suddenly curled up, and a cold murderous intent surged in his eyes. The murderous intent condensed all over his body and enveloped Nie Tian. Nie Tian was not afraid of this murderous intent at all. He stood proudly on the spot with disdain in his eyes. His figure was like a sword and as firm as a rock. At that moment, Xian Zhao's burly body swayed slightly. The vital meridians in his body revolved wildly, and an invisible pressure spread out, enveloping the space within a few hundred meters. The crowd felt the terrifying pressure and retreated one after another. Heaven-human realm. Huojia also retreated. His expression stiffened, and his heart trembled. He did not expect Xian Xiao to be not only overbearing but also shameless. He had used heaven-human realm on a heaven evolution warrior. This was using his power to oppress him. Big brother Nie Tian. Xian Miaomiao's eyes trembled. Tears brewed in her eyes and slowly flowed down. His Royal Highness is too much. He actually used heaven-human realm. He clearly wants Nie Tian to die. The crowd's eyes were burning, and some people discussed in a low voice. Some people from the four major families were happy, and some were worried. Yu Jiao stared at Nie Tian with a complicated expression, as if she was thinking about something. She did not know why, but she had a feeling that Nie Tian could take Xian Zhao's attack. Brat, prepare to die. Xian Xiao unleashed his heaven-human realm, and his lips curled into a cold smile. Within this space of several hundred meters, he was the overlord ruling over everything. It was difficult for Nie Tian to revolve his vital meridians in the heaven-human realm, let alone fight back. The heaven-human realm had absolute suppression on martial artists below the heaven realm. It was impossible to break through it without some extraordinary means. Nie Tian felt the invisible pressure from the space, making it hard for him to breathe. The heaven-human realm is indeed insane. Nie Tian smiled bitterly in his heart. Although his expression was a little ugly, he still remained calm, and the determination in his eyes did not change. Xian Xiao took a step forward and his aura surged. The pressure from the heaven-human realm was extreme, and everyone could feel the agitation in their chests. At that moment, everyone's eyes widened. They knew that Xian Xiao was going to make a move. Die! The next moment, a furious roar was heard. Xian Xiao struck out with his palm, and black sand appeared in the void. It was vast and boundless, and it condensed into a giant hand in the air, grabbing at Nie Tian. The giant black sand hand released a powerful aura of destruction, and there were even traces of blood flowing in it. It was very strange. Mysterious blood jade sand. Huijia's eyes widened when he saw that, and he cursed, "Bastard, you're even using the power of your bloodline." The mysterious blood jade sand was the power of the Xian family's bloodline. Huijia had never thought that Xian Shao would be so shameless. Not only did he use the heaven-human realm, but he also used the power of his bloodline to deal with a heaven evolution realm martial artist. He had spared no effort in this move. He was simply trying to kill with a single blow. The hearts of the crowd trembled. Since Xian Shao had used the power of his bloodline, Nie Tian had no chance of survival. The tragic scene of Nie Tian being crushed into minced meat already appeared in everyone's minds. Chapter 770. The moment Nie Tian opened his eyes, the power of the stars in his body surged out and gathered in his eyes, turning into powerful spiritual power. At that moment, everyone felt a real tremor. It was as if everything around them was trembling. It was a tremor that came from the very fabric of space itself. It was an inexplicable fear. Xian Shao only wanted to kill Nie Tian. All his attention was focused on Nie Tian. When that spiritual deterrence appeared, his eyes glazed over and he lost control of his spirit. In an instant, the giant black sand hand in the air paused, and the celestial realm disappeared. Immediately after, Nie Tian took a step and flew into the air. He looked down at Xian Shao and formed a strange seal with both hands. The power of heaven and earth changed immediately. The spiritual power of heaven and earth within thousands of meters tilted towards Nie Tian and surged into his body. Everything happened in the blink of an eye. Flowing killing seal, kill. Nie Tian's aura surged. He was like a god of death standing in the air. His eyes were cold and emotionless. He shouted in a low voice and slammed his palm down. The space shook violently, and a terrifying handprint appeared, pressing down on Xian Shao. At that moment, Xian Zhao's eyes were slightly glazed, as if he had lost his mind. However, the moment the flowing killing seal landed on him, his eyes snapped back to reality. Suddenly, a layer of blood jade mystic sand appeared and wrapped around his body, forming a mystic sand shield. Boom! The flowing killing seal landed, and turbid waves dozens of meters high rose from the ground. A mighty force spread out. The crowd involuntarily took a few steps back, but their eyes were fixed on Xian Shao. The reversal happened in an instant. No one could react. Most people did not know what Nie Tian had done just now. He had actually broken the celestial realm and made Xian Shao lose his mind for a moment. However, the feeling just now was too terrifying. Even their souls could not help but tremble when they thought about it. Nie Tian's figure descended from the sky. His face was pale, and the light in his eyes had dimmed. He was very tired. As the dust settled, Xian Zhao's figure appeared in front of everyone. He was not injured, but he was in a sorry state. His face was covered in dust, and his hair was messy. He did not look like a prince at all. He looked like a beggar. We still failed. Nie Tian could not help but smile bitterly when he saw that Xian Shao was unscathed. Xian Shao wanted to kill him, and he wanted to kill Xian Shao too. Originally, he wanted to use absolute terror to catch Xian Shao off guard and then use the flowing mortal seal to kill him. Unfortunately, Xian Zhao's strength was too strong, and his mental fortitude was not weak either. At the critical moment, his spirit awoke, and he used the blood jade mystical sand to block the fatal blow of the flowing human seal. If Xian Shao had woken up half a second later, he would have been severely injured, if not dead. Nie Tian felt that it was a pity, but at this moment everyone was shocked by him. Who would have thought that not only did he block Xian Zhao's attack, but he was also unscathed. Not only that, he even counterattacked and almost succeeded. This scene was too shocking and indescribable. Everyone looked at Nie Tian in disbelief, as if they were looking at a monster. It had to be said that the current Nie Tian was a monster in their eyes. Huijia and the others were also stunned. They were so shocked that they could not speak. A moment later, the sound of gulping saliva could be heard from the crowd. Ah! At this moment, Xian Xiao, who was standing on the spot, suddenly howled like a wild beast that had gone mad. Impossible, I don't believe it! Xian Xiao roared crazily. His facial features were twisted into a ball, and he looked hideous and terrifying. His voice was trembling, and so was his entire body. Without a doubt, this was the trembling of rage. Xian Xiao looked at Nie Tian with bloodshot eyes. He felt an indescribable sense of humiliation in his heart. To think that he, a dignified second-level heaven human martial artist, was actually beaten up by a second-level heaven evolution martial artist. This was a great humiliation and unforgivable. He was the crown prince of the Black Moon Empire. He was one of the 9 demons of the Meru world. He was a big shot that could only be looked up to and feared by others. How could he endure such humiliation? The crowd looked at Xian Xiao with very complicated expressions. There was fear, dread, doubt, and even a trace of pity. Xian Xiao probably never dreamed that there would be a moment like this in his life. The air suddenly became still. The scene was dead silent. Xian Xiao's heavy breathing reverberated in the air, and he looked even more wretched. His entire body could not stop trembling. There was a stuffy feeling in his chest, and it was uncomfortable. He could not take this lying down. Your Highness, one move is over. The matter with the Yun family ends here, Nie Tian said calmly as he looked at Xian Xiao calmly. He did not have time to care about Xian Xiao's current feelings. One move was over. According to the agreement, the matter with the Yun family would end here. The crowd looked at Xian Xiao to see how the latter would respond. Brat, I'll tear you apart. Xian Xiao glared at Nie Tian. The murderous intent in his eyes suddenly intensified. With a roar, he attacked again. Boom! Xian Xiao was less than 10 meters away from Nie Tian. He struck out with his palm, and the black sand hand made of blood jade mystical sand appeared again, pressing down on Nie Tian. The crowd's eyes widened. No one had expected Xian Xiao to attack again. The dignified crown prince had gone back on his word in front of so many people. It was really shocking. Watch out! Fire Armor shouted. He wanted to attack again, but it was too late. In this moment of life and death, Nie Tian was unusually calm. His body shook, and he activated all kinds of defenses. The Dragon Scale Shield, the 17th Sword Shield, the Star Shield, and the Sky Yuan Armor of Waterpole were activated almost at the same time. In the next moment, a vast amount of star power surged out of his body. The sky-shrouding totem appeared again, enveloping his entire body and forming a sky-shrouding armor. Boom! 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 The black sand hand pressed down, and there was a violent explosion in the air. The sky-shrouding armor, the dragon scale shield, the sword shield, the star shield, and the Sky Yuan armor of Waterpole were destroyed layer by layer. Nie Tian's body flew backward, and a trail of blood splattered in the air. The crowd's eyes trembled as they followed Nie Tian's figure. Bang! Nie Tian landed on the ground and stood firmly on the ground. His whole body was covered in blood, but his eyes were still determined. Wiping the blood from the corner of his mouth, Nie Tian's body shook. The blood and dirt on his body shook off, and the wounds on his body healed in the blink of an eye. Crown Prince Xian Xiao, is this all you've got? Is this all you've got? Nie Tianling stared coldly at Xian Xiao, his eyes rippling with extreme disdain. Xian Xiao's attack just now was too sudden, and Nie Tian didn't have much time to react. If not, Nie Tian would have used the sky shrouding totem, and he wouldn't have been in such a sorry state. Gasp! When the crowd saw that Nie Tian wasn't dead, they all gasped. The shock in their hearts was written all over their faces. The strength that Nie Tian had displayed today had completely overturned everyone's understanding of a level 2 heavenly evolution realm martial artist. This is impossible. When Xian Xiao saw that Nie Tian wasn't dead and had even mocked him, His expression became extremely ugly. The murderous intent in his eyes burned like a raging fire. He moved, intending to attack again. Chapter 771. Master Huojia. When the crowd saw that the figure standing between Nie Tian and Xian Shao was Huojia, their hearts couldn't help but tremble. Their gazes became heated. If Huojia and Xian Shao were to fight, this would be a great show to watch. Nie Tian heaved a sigh of relief when he saw Huojia. If he continued to fight with Xian Shao, he would probably have to use the spirit dragon ring. It would be troublesome if others suspected that he was from the 10,000 demon dragon abyss. Xian Shao, as the crown prince, how could you go back on your word and go back on your word in front of everyone? Do you think this old man is just air? Huojia was furious. He no longer gave Xian Shao any face and coldly rebuked him. Huojia was not only a master craftsman, but he was also a martial artist. He had lived for more than 500 years. Although his martial arts talent was not top-notch, his cultivation was in the 5th stage of the celestial human realm. He was strong enough to suppress Xian Shao. Moreover, they were in the Craftsman's Guild. There were countless hidden guards, as well as Bai Luo and the others. Huojia was naturally fearless. Xian Shao looked at Huojia. His eyes were filled with resentment and humiliation. Huojia's status was too high. Even if he did not have any cultivation, Xian Shao would not dare to attack him. Attacking Huojia was no different from declaring war on the Craftsman's Guild. The consequences were too severe. Even the Black Moon Empire could not bear the consequences, let alone Xian Shao. Xian Shao was arrogant, but he was not a fool. He understood this. However, if he let Nie Tian go just like that, he would not be able to take it lying down. If today's incident spread, he would be utterly humiliated as the crown prince. After thinking about it, Xian Zhao's eyes flickered. He looked at Huojia and said, "Master Huojia, are you really going to protect this person?" Huojia smiled Xian Shao and asked, "Xian Shao, are you really going to go back on your word?" Huojia's question revealed his determination. "Brother, you are the crown prince of the Xian Yu Empire. If you go back on your words, it will affect the reputation of the entire imperial family. I hope you will think twice." At this time, Xian Qiu's voice sounded. He didn't even try to hide his joy at Huang Xiaolong's misfortune. "Shut up!" Xian Shao glared at Xian Qiu coldly and scolded him. Xian Qiu's face twitched a few times. The hatred in his eyes was very obvious, but he didn't say anything. Xian Shao thought for a long time. His murderous gaze swept across Nie Tian, and his eyes were filled with indignation and anger. Nie Tian, on the other hand, looked calm and relaxed. "Farewell, Master Fire Armor." Xian Shao gnashed his teeth, but in the end, he could only speak hatefully. Without waiting for Huojia's reply, he took a step forward and soared into the sky, disappearing in the blink of an eye. "He's gone." The crowd looked in the direction that Xian Shao had disappeared in with some regret in their eyes. The onlookers were not afraid to blow things up. Xian Shao did not fight Huojia, which disappointed the crowd. From this, it could be seen that even the royal family of Mystic Moon dared to offend the Craftsman's Guild. Xian Zhao's departure marked the end of the show. Huojia's expression softened a little. He looked at Nie Tian and smiled bitterly. "Nie Tian, are you all right?" Nie Tian waved his hand casually, indicating that he was fine. Huojia's opinion of Nie Tian had completely changed. The strength that the latter had displayed was too strange, and it was beyond his imagination. After a while, the crowd gradually dispersed. Before Yu Jiao left, she glanced at Nie Tian. It seemed like she wanted to say something, but in the end, she didn't. "Nie Tian, can we talk now?" At this moment, Xian Qiu walked over, his eyes showing that he was trying to be friendly. The strength that Nie Tian had displayed just now was too strong, and it shocked Xian Qiu. If he had been the one fighting Xian Shao just now, he would have been crippled, if not dead. Nie Tian's expression was a little ugly, and he was as pale as a sheet. Although the power of absolute tremor was terrifying, it consumed a lot of mental power. Even the current Nye Tian would fall into a state of mental exhaustion after using it once. Huijia glanced at Xianqiu, not concealing the displeasure in his heart. Sure. However, Nye Tian didn't reject him. He said lightly, Elder Hua, please arrange a room for me. I have something to discuss with the 19th Highness. Xianqiu was very interested in Nye Tian. It seemed like he had something to ask of him. However, Nye Tian wasn't easy to deal with. He was best at demanding an exorbitant price. Okay. Huijia nodded slightly, but he didn't look too good. He felt that what Nye Tian needed the most now was rest. Huijia asked Bai Luo to bring Xian Miao Miao away, and he taught her some basic knowledge of crafting weapons. Since he had taken Xian Miao Miao as his disciple, Huijia would do his best to teach her, no matter how talented she was. After a while, Nye Tian and Xianqiu arrived at a room. The 19th Highness, there's no one here now. What's the matter? Nye Tian looked at Xianqiu with a strange expression and smiled lightly. Xianqiu was very cautious. After confirming that there was no one around, he said, Nye Tian, I'm here to make a deal with you. Just the day before, Xianqiu had naively thought that he could subdue Nye Tian and make him his loyal subordinate. However, after what had happened that day, he understood that it would be best for him and Nye Tian to have a cooperative relationship. A deal. Nye Tian smiled faintly, but he was secretly happy. Since it was a deal, it had to be mutually beneficial. This time, he wanted to extort a lot of money from Xianqiu. Okay. Xianqiu nodded and said, Nye Tian, have you heard of the wind and cloud technique? The wind and cloud technique? Nye Tian was slightly stunned. He suddenly recalled something and laughed, shaking his head. I've never heard of it. Nye Tian had never heard of the wind and cloud technique, but he had seen it before. When he was outside the city, he accidentally killed a messenger pigeon. On the note was a sentence. The wind and cloud technique, in 2 months, the forbidden land of wind and cloud. Hearing Xianqiu mention the wind and cloud technique, Nye Tian vaguely guessed that it should be something like a martial arts competition, where geniuses from all walks of life would gather and fight it out. Xianqiu let out a long breath and said, There is a forbidden land in the sacred light domain called the Forbidden Land of Wind and Cloud. It is located at the intersection of the 5 first-rate forces in the sacred light domain. It is rumored that the Forbidden Land of Wind and Cloud is a blessed land left behind by an ancient expert. There are many ancient treasures and even ancient legacies inside. The Forbidden Land of Wind and Cloud is protected by a special seal that opens once every 20 years. The 5 first-rate forces reached an agreement a long time ago. When the Forbidden Land of Wind and Cloud opens, all 5 forces can send people in to seek powerful legacies or rare treasures. In 2 months, the Forbidden Land of Wind and Cloud technique will open, and the 5 forces will begin. The Dark Moon Empire can send 10 people into the Forbidden Land of Wind and Cloud, but they must be martial artists below the Celestial Realm. I and Crown Prince Xian Shao can each send 5 people. Therefore, I want you to enter the Forbidden Land of Wind and Cloud. Nye Tian nodded slightly, completely understanding what was going on. This Xianqiu was really cunning. He actually wanted Nye Tian to enter the Forbidden Land of Wind and Cloud. Since the Forbidden Land of Wind and Cloud was left behind by an ancient expert, it must be extremely dangerous inside. According to Xianqiu, the Forbidden Land of Wind and Cloud only allowed martial artists below the Celestial Realm to enter. Coincidentally, he was at the Heavenly Evolution 9th level and met the requirements to enter. Chapter 772. The Forbidden Land of Wind and Cloud was a relic left from ancient times, but it just so happened to be located at the border of the 5 forces. In order to keep each other in check, the 5 forces each sent people into the Forbidden Land, and only those below the Heaven tier were allowed to enter. Nie Tian thought for a moment, then asked, "Who are the 5 forces?" Although Nie Tian was not too familiar with the Holy Light region, he still wanted to know about the 5 forces so that he could be prepared. 3 first-rate empires and 2 first-rate sections. Xian Xiu was delighted to see Nie Tian's interest. The 3 empires are the Dark Moon Empire, the Blazing Sun Empire, and the Wood Leaf Empire. The 2 sects are the Sky Sword Pavilion and the Heaven Severing sect. Sky Sword Pavilion. Hearing the familiar name, Nie Tian could not help but be taken aback, then his lips curled into a smile. It seemed that Sky Sword Pavilion's power in the Holy Light region was on the same level as the Dark Moon Empire. They were strong, but not too strong. Xian Xiu nodded. In the past, our Dark Moon Empire and Sky Sword Pavilion have always been in a cooperative relationship. The other 3 forces are even closer. Hearing Xian Xiu's words, Nie Tian could not help but twitch the corner of his mouth. The forbidden land of wind and cloud was a dangerous place, but also a land of treasures. In a place like that, not to mention 2 forces, even cultivators from the same force would have conflicts of interest. In the end, alliances were temporary. Only interests were eternal. Nie Tian, are you willing to go? Seeing that Nie Tian seemed to be hesitating, Xian Xiu's heart tightened, afraid that the other would not agree. Nie Tian was not hesitating, but thinking. The forbidden land of wind and cloud was an opportunity that was very attractive to him. But seeing how anxious Xian Xiu was, he naturally would not let go of a good chance to rip someone off. 19th Highness, I can go to the forbidden land of wind and cloud, but there are some things that we need to make clear first. Nie Tian smiled faintly, a strange look in his eyes. What do you want? Just say it. Xian Xiu was very generous. As long as Nie Tian was willing to go, he could provide a generous reward. The strength that Nie Tian had just displayed made even him wary. As long as one entered the forbidden land of wind and cloud, they would basically be the strongest within the forbidden land. Naturally, their competitiveness would also be the strongest. First, anything you find in the forbidden area belongs to me. Nie Tian was best at demanding an exorbitant price. He chuckled and stated his first condition. Xian Xiu's eyes narrowed. He didn't expect Nie Tian's first condition to be so exaggerated. His eyes trembled and he immediately said, "You can have the other things, but if you obtain the ancient inheritance, you must bring it out." Inheritance? Nie Tian was stunned. It seemed that Xian Xiu was not easy to deal with. In the forbidden land of wind and cloud, even if there were any spirit weapons or spirit pills, they would have been destroyed long ago. However, the inheritance was something that could not be destroyed. Just like Mo Rushi's Phoenix soul inheritance, it was still intact even after hundreds of thousands of years. Xian Xiu knew that the inheritance was a good thing, but how could Nie Tian not know? 19th Highness. Nie Tian looked at Xian Xiu and suddenly let out a strange laugh. He asked, "I want to know, every time 50 people enter the forbidden land of wind and cloud, how many people come out alive?" Each of the 5 major forces would send 10 people, for a total of 50 people. Hearing this question, Xian Xiu was obviously stunned. His eyes narrowed and he said, "Not a single one." Not a single one? Nie Tian was stunned. He didn't expect to receive such an answer. Xian Xiu said in a low voice, "The forbidden land of wind and cloud was discovered several hundred years ago and has been opened more than a dozen times. Every time someone enters, not a single one comes out alive." He didn't want to say this, but this information couldn't be hidden. Nie Tian just had to ask Huijia and the others and they would know. So that's how it is. The corner of Nie Tian's mouth curved. Xian Xiu's words didn't scare him. Instead, he felt inexplicably excited. He liked places like the forbidden land of wind and cloud, just like the bloody massacre tomb and the chaotic abyss of the 3,000 lesser world. 19th Highness, since no one has ever come out of the forbidden land of wind and cloud, it is too early for us to talk about the inheritance. Nie Tian smiled faintly and said, how about this? I promise you that if there is a chance, I will bring back the inheritance for you. But the prerequisite is that I must obtain the inheritance first. Xianqiu looked at Nie Tian. The latter's eyes were calm and determined. He nodded and agreed to Nie Tian's request. The reason why Xianqiu valued the battle of wind and cloud so much was because he wanted to obtain the inheritance. He knew that his talent was inferior to Xianzhao's. Even if he could compete with the latter now, the one to inherit the throne would still be Xianzhao. At that time, he would be in great danger. With Xianzhao's personality, the first person he would kill after inheriting the throne would be Xianqiu. But if Xianqiu obtained the inheritance, then things would be different. No matter what inheritance he obtained, Xianqiu was confident that he could defeat Xianzhao and truly fight for the throne. Whether or not he could obtain the inheritance would determine Xianqiu's future survival. Nie Tian, what other conditions do you have? Xianqiu continued to ask. He now believed that if anyone could come out of the forbidden land of wind and cloud alive, that person would be Nie Tian. Your Highness has a quota of 5 people. Nie Tian smiled strangely and said, apart from me, I want to choose the other 4 myself. You choose? Xianqiu was stunned. He didn't think that Nie Tian would raise such a condition. He had originally wanted to find a few confidants to watch over Nie Tian, but who would have thought that the latter would want to choose himself? Nie Tian nodded heavily and said, that's right. I'll choose the 4 of them myself. Otherwise, I will not go to the forbidden land of wind and cloud. He spoke very decisively, leaving no room for negotiation for Xianqiu. This trip to the forbidden land of wind and cloud was fraught with danger. Nie Tian only had one requirement for his teammates, and that was trust. Teammates didn't have to be strong, but they had to be absolutely trustworthy. Nie Tian didn't want to be pushed when he was standing on the edge of a cliff. This king only wants one spot. After a long silence, Xianqiu suddenly said, leave it for me. Nie Tian's eyes narrowed, slightly surprised. You want to enter personally? Yes. Xianqiu nodded solemnly. This king is very confident in Mr. Nie Tian. I believe that you won't disappoint this king. Xianqiu had just made a decision to enter the forbidden land of wind and cloud personally. He wanted to gamble with his life on Nie Tian. Xianqiu could tell that if Nie Tian chose his own people, then after entering the forbidden land and Nie Tian obtained the inheritance, his other teammates would also obtain the inheritance. At that time, Xianqiu wouldn't even have a share. So to obtain the inheritance, he had to enter personally and take the risk. Chapter 773. Nie Tian had not expected Xianqiu to enter the forbidden land of wind and cloud personally. It had to be said that besides being shrewd and gloomy, Xianqiu was also very bold. Your Highness, of course I cannot stop you from entering the forbidden land of wind and cloud. But I must remind you that once you enter the forbidden land, you have to listen to me. Can you do that? Nie Tian asked calmly as he looked at Xianqiu. The forbidden land of wind and cloud was extremely dangerous. Nie Tian did not want anyone to quarrel with him at such a crucial time. No problem. Xianqiu nodded. I also have a condition. You have to protect me. Okay. Nie Tian nodded slightly, but he was speechless. A 9th-level Heavenly Evolution Warrior needed the protection of a 2nd-level Heavenly Evolution Warrior. It was really strange. Xianqiu was relieved to see Nie Tian agree. He stood up and said, it's a deal. We'll enter the forbidden land of wind and cloud together in 2 months. Nie Tian waved his hand. Don't be hasty, Your Highness. I haven't finished my condition. What other conditions do you have? Xianqiu was speechless. Nie Tian had already stated so many conditions, but he still had more. This was too much. Nie Tian smiled faintly. I want your highness to help me find someone. Find someone? Xian Qiu was stunned again, but his expression improved. No problem. As long as the person you are looking for is in the Black Moon Empire, I will definitely help you find him. I don't know if he is in the Black Moon Empire. Nie Tian stood up. A ball of light surged out of his palm and gradually condensed into a human figure. It was Jean de Bao. Nie Tian and Jean de Bao had been separated when entering the Meru world. He did not know where Jean de Bao was now. If he could find Jean de Bao, Nie Tian was prepared to bring him into the forbidden land of wind and cloud. Jean de Bao was not strong, but he was one of Nie Tian's most trusted people. Furthermore, he had extraordinary perception, which was what Nie Tian valued the most. 19th Highness, if this person is still in the Dark Moon Empire, please help me find him. If not, it's fine. Nie Tian could only say this. If Jean de Bao went to another place in the Sumer world, there was nothing he could do. Alright. Xian Qiu memorized Jean de Bao's appearance and then left. Looking at Xian Qiu's back, Nie Tian could not help but smile strangely. He didn't have a good impression of Xian Qiu, but he didn't hate him either. At least compared to Xian Xiao, Xian Qiu was a little better. After Xian Qiu left, Hua Jia came in. After Hua Jia came in, he looked at Nie Tian suspiciously and asked in a muffled voice, "Brat, why did Xian Qiu look for you?" With a bitter smile, Nie Tian didn't try to hide anything, and went on to explain what had happened with the wind and cloud mantra. "You want to join the wind and cloud duel?" As soon as Nie Tian said this, Hua Jia couldn't help but scream. He looked at him in disbelief and shouted, "Brat, do you know what kind of place the forbidden land of wind and cloud is? It is one of the 3 most dangerous places in the Holy Light region. For hundreds of years, countless people have entered the forbidden land of wind and cloud, and no one has ever come out alive. Do you think you are stronger than those people?" Nie Tian nodded with a serious expression. He was indeed stronger than those people. Hua Jia was speechless. He then said, "Brat, you must not go to the forbidden land of wind and cloud. With your talent, even without any inheritance, you can still reach unimaginable heights in the future. There is no need to risk your life." "Elder Hua, I have already promised Xian Qiu." Nie Tian could see that Hua Jia really cared about him, so he could not refuse. "So what if you agree?" Hua Jia ignored him and shouted, "If you are embarrassed, this old man will go talk to Xian Qiu. Anyway, you must not go to the forbidden land of wind and cloud." Ugh! Nie Tian was speechless. This old man's reaction was too big. After a pause, Nie Tian said seriously, "Elder Hua, I have decided about the forbidden land of wind and cloud. You just have to trust me." After that, Nie Tian did not stay any longer. While Hua Jia was stunned, he ran away. Hua Jia was stunned. After a while, Nie Tian's voice sounded in his ears, "Elder Hua, I have something to do. I will come find Xian Miao Miao tonight." "Little brat, you can't go to the forbidden land of wind and cloud." Hua Jia finally reacted. He slapped his thigh and sighed. Unfortunately, Nie Tian's figure was already far away. After leaving the Craftsman Guild, Nie Tian went straight to the Yu family auction house. There were still 2 months left before the Wind and Cloud Crusade. It would be best if Xian Qiu could help find Jean de Bao, but if not, he still needed to find 3 people. These 3 people must be absolutely trusted, so they were not easy to find. For some reason, the first person that appeared in Nie Tian's mind was Yu Jiao. This woman was not very strong, only at the 4th level of heavenly evolution. However, she knew her limits and knew when to advance and retreat. She was a good candidate. After a while, Nie Tian appeared at the Yu family auction house. The person who received him seemed to recognize him. He quickly brought him to a room and said, "Young master, please wait for a moment. Eldest miss will be here soon." Nie Tian waited quietly in the room. After a while, Yu Jiao's figure appeared. Young Master Nie Tian. Yu Jiao could not hide the joy in her eyes when she saw Nie Tian, but she was a little restrained. When she saw the battle between Nie Tian and Xian Shao not long ago, Yu Jiao felt that Nie Tian was an incredible person. Miss Yu Jiao, I have something to discuss with you. Nie Tian did not stand on ceremony and told her about the wind and cloud law. Finally, he said, I would like to invite you to enter the forbidden land of wind and cloud with me. Are you willing? After listening to Nie Tian, Yu Jiao's expression was a little complicated. There was joy, excitement, and worry at the same time. She did not expect that Xian Qiu would let Nie Tian enter the forbidden land of wind, and that he would agree. Xian Qiu even gave Nie Tian the right to choose who to enter. This was even more unexpected. However, the forbidden land of wind and cloud was an extremely dangerous place. Even if Yu Jiao was willing, the Yu family might not agree. Nie Tian, I need to discuss this with father. I will give you an answer in a few days. Is that okay? Yu Jiao wanted to go very much. She was especially excited to be able to fight alongside Nie Tian. Of course. Nie Tian smiled faintly. Entering the forbidden land of wind and cloud was a matter of life and death. He could not force her. Then, Nie Tian said, Yu Jiao, I want to ask, is there a large martial arts arena in Mystic Moon City? Of course there is. Yu Jiao giggled and teased. Don't tell me you want to go to the martial arts arena to find someone. Unexpectedly, Nie Tian nodded solemnly. He was indeed going to the martial arts arena to find someone. Yu Jiao was speechless. She murmured, I thought you would go to the 4 academies to find someone. There were 4 martial arts academies in Mystic Moon Imperial City. Logically speaking, Nie Tian should go to these academies to find someone. Who would have thought that he would go to the martial arts arena to find someone? Brother Nie Tian, the people in the martial arts arena are all very violent and not easy to control. Are you sure you want to go there to find someone? Yu Jiao asked worriedly.